окупанти до нас в Україну. Форма новенька, воєнні машини та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там пивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 846 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And today we're seeing a major Russian port hit, and also Putin is shamelessly begging to Kim Jong-un for some more aid. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 48 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, as we have gotten incredibly large news that the Russian port of Rostov-on-Don has been hit severely by Ukrainian drones, knocking out all port activities as of the past 24 hours. A massive bit of news for Ukraine, considering now both major ports, Rostov-on-Don and Novorossiysk, have both been knocked out in this course of the war. Not only that, we were also able to get major news that President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, has arrived in the city of Pyongyang in North Korea and is currently visiting with Kim Jong-un, the dictator of the country, trying to seek more aid for the Russian Federation. Not only that, but we have a small development on the Chinese-Taiwan situation, as we got to see that a Type 94 submarine surfaced near to the area of Pinggu County, and that was actually pictured today by a Taiwanese fishing vessel. We also got incredibly large news that the Indians are actually going to be changing who they're buying weapons from to the good old US of A, which is actually major news. While not directly about the war in Ukraine, this is major as far as the West versus, I guess you could say, the axis of evil in the world situation is concerned. We were also able to get news that the United States is keeping an eye on the Russian flotilla that's currently just off the coast of Florida again. We were also able to hear that inside of Ukraine, the Russians are continuing to lose at Vovchansk. There is still video and picture evidence coming out that Russian forces are openly surrendering amongst many areas of the front lines, and we have also gotten reports from Ukrainian forces just today saying that the situation is getting better and better, and that Ukrainian forces are now about to completely take the village of Hloboke. And we've also heard of the ongoing fights still surrounding Lykyantsy and the ongoing fights to push the Russians out of the city of Vovchansk, along with a lot of video footage of heavy Ukrainian firepower being used in the city to dislodge and remove Russian forces from their positions. We have an absolutely massive amount of news that we have to cover today. It is an unbelievable amount, spanning over the course of 48 hours, and it is actually crazy from end to end. Not in terms of like the craziest, like, you know, like someone like spinning around on a unicycle or anything like that, but it is absolutely crazy in the terms of the amount of news and the importance of these pieces of news in every single way that we have to cover. Moving us on into our first and major bit of news out of the port of Rostov-on-Don came the fact that a Ukrainian drone attack once again made it entirely through Russian air defenses unscathed and struck the only refueling depot for the entire port of Rostov-on-Don. Rostov-on-Don and Novorossiysk are the two major ports that the Russian Federation uses to conduct maritime traffic or maritime shipping over the course of the war. The port of Sevastopol is largely a military port, and while there are some civilian harbors within the area, pretty much the entire city is dedicated to the operation of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. And for a little while, during the time that Ukraine controlled the peninsula before the Russians annexed it in 2014 illegally, it was also home to the larger vessels of the Ukrainian Navy, which most of them ended up being captured by the Russians in 2014, or scuttled. However, the port of Novorossiysk and Rostov-on-Don, in terms of commercial shipping, are far more important to the Russian war effort than the port of Sevastopol. We already know that a while ago, a few months ago, the oil terminal, or the fuel terminal, within the area of Novorossiysk, which we see right here, was stricken by Ukrainian drones, which knocked out all refueling abilities of the port. This means that shipments into the port either have to come from a very nearby local port, or they are completely forbidden from entering, considering that most vessels probably would not have fuel to leave the port and then go on a journey to another port of calling. That means that the only port that has been operational for a while now is the port of Rostov-on-Don, at least for major commercial shipping traffic. The port of Rostov-on-Don is, interestingly enough, actually up the Don River, requiring vessels to take the arduous trip from the Azov Sea into the actual river. And I'm going to see if I can show y'all some vessels. We can see one right here making the transit up and down the Don River and past the city of Azov to actually make it to the main port infrastructure that is up here in the city of Rostov-on-Don, which is also, coincidentally, the headquarters of the Southern Military District of the Russian Federation, which has been charged with the conducting of the war in Ukraine. The headquarters for the Russian forces in Ukraine is actually within the city of Rostov-on-Don. However, the major fueling node, or the major fueling access point within the area, is actually inside the city of Azov. It is these 6 little fuel tanks right here, and they're actually not that little in real life, they're actually incredibly large, but they are connected to a series of pipeworks, which you can see right here, which then make their way all the way to the river, and then to this specific fueling access point right here. From what we understand, this fueling access point can actually fuel 2 vessels at a time at the maximum number, but usually is only refueling 1 at a time. It is a continuous effort by the Russians to make sure that these fueling nodes are open, both in Novorossiysk and in Rostov-on-Don, and they are a vital part of the supply chain. These vessels require a pretty decent amount of fuel to be able to operate, even just within the Black Sea area or within an international area at large. And because of this, Russian vessels taking longer distances will have to refuel either at the port of Novorossiysk or the port of Rostov-on-Don, which we're seeing right here. The Ukrainians know this, and they know that if they strike these fuel nodes, they will be able to knock out the Russian ability to refuel their vessels, meaning that commercial shipping and commercial traffic will no longer be able to transit through the Black Sea and to a Russian port. Instead, all of these vessels will have to take the incredibly long trip around up into the area of St. Petersburg or into a port far further north like Murmansk or Arkhangelsk, where they can then drop off their supplies in those areas, which would take much longer, and not only that, drags out the Russian supply lines over ground, because now all Russian supplies cannot be transported from a very nearby location in Rostov-on-Don or in Novorossiysk by rail and then into the front lines in Ukraine. They now have to be dropped off on the other side of Russia and then transported by train all the way down and into the area of Ukraine. This means that overall, it is a strategic imperative for Ukraine to knock out these ports and port infrastructure that would be vital to the Russian war effort. And that's exactly what they did overnight, with video surfacing of the Ukrainian drones impacting the fuel depots and setting them on fire. We were able to get a clip of this right here, and it was very nice to see. This is actually the fire as daylight broke, and we can see the clip right here.
Bliat. That's a lot of smoke, Bliat.
That is a lot. And it is stretching all the way over the horizon and into Rostov-on-Don itself. That looks like it would not be healthy.
No, I think it might become the new Cancer Alley after this whole situation. I think, Don, we're gonna need some good medical care that we don't ever have, Don.
Don, I need more ham and cheddar, Don. And we can see that they were cooking up the ham and cheddar right here in the toaster. You can also see the tops of the fuel silos right here. From what we understand, this camera was on the western side of the fuel silo facing east, because these 2 fuel silos that were on fire, or the fuel depots, were actually the ones on the most northerly end of the complex. We were able to actually get a lot more footage and pictures of this fuel depot explosion and fire, like for here, for example. We got to see that the fires were continuing to burn literally just hours ago, and no one has been able to put them out. We don't know how much damage is being caused at the moment, and whether the fire is spread from the first 2 fuel depots or fuel containers that were hit, and then they moved on to the other ones further down. We don't know that for certain. But we were able to see once again from the city of Azov, well, actually from satellite pictures right here, which were taken literally just today, that fires were enveloping the northern side of the complex and making sure to roast the area quite nicely. And we can see once again the satellite pictures taken today, once again showing serious damage that has been caused. Moving on from that and on into our next bit of news from these fires, we were also able to see a more specific view of the exact fuel depot that was hit. Of course, we just showed you all this on Google Earth, but we wanted to make sure to line it up with someone who was able to corroborate our information, and these are the exact fuel silos that we were looking at just a moment ago. Also got to give a huge shout out to BC Skyman, who's absolutely killing it in the live chat right now. I was like, oh my god, thank you so much.
Thank you, BC.
And to of course, to continue on with the news, to make sure that we honor that support, because it's here for the good news, and we want to make sure to get that out. This is the specific fuel depots that caught on fire right here. This is the pipeline, like I was showing y'all a moment ago, that transports the fuel from the fuel depots, or as I call them, fuel silos, and up from that area and straight up and into the refueling node that is right here. We can also see in the satellite picture a vessel that is actually moored alongside the fuel node and is taking on fuel. Of course, this has all been knocked out as of today. With the fuel silos, of course, on fire, the fuel access probably has been shut off. And we were also able to see that Russian firefighters did respond on scene, but from what we understand, they have been completely unsuccessful in quelling the blaze. This may as well be like taking a squirt gun to a house fire right here, because there's no way they're going to be putting out this fire with just a few hoses. You can see that right here. And that's
fantastic. That's the one thing the Russians needed to invest in that they didn't, is the fire department, because fires literally are everywhere, and they can never put any of them out. That's funny.
Man, it really is funny. They never can. And the impact of this is going to be much more far spread than just the fire alone. This fire is going to knock out Rostov-on-Don probably for days, if not weeks, until that fueling node can be turned back on. This means that all Russian ships right now that are transiting the Black Sea and are low on fuel will most likely have to divert to a different port of calling, most likely in Turkey, to try and refuel, and then they may be able to make the leg into Russia. But this will add a lot of expense, because not only do these vessels have to get pilots to be brought into Turkish ports, but they also have to be able to buy Turkish fuel, which may be a little bit more expensive than the fuel found in Russia. We really don't know. Another thing that will also be impacted as well is the price of mooring a vessel in a port. Usually that has to be coordinated in advance, and it actually costs a good bit of money to be able to put your vessel into a port. It costs, I believe, if I'm correct, Matthew, somewhere in from different ports, something of like tens of thousands of dollars a day to hundreds of thousands of dollars a day, depending on the spot in the port. And not only that, I guess you could say the usage of the port, whether it's a high usage port or a low usage port. But still, this is going to be massive and a huge impact to the Russian war effort, which will probably permeate the Russian world for probably several days. But moving on from this news in Rostov-on-Don, there is something even bigger, I would say, that has actually happened on the other side of the world, literally, from Ukraine, which is in North Korea. North Korea is known as the Hermit Kingdom, and it probably is the best description of the country that could be described. North Korea is practically run as an absolutist monarchy. The Kim family is the family responsible for the leadership of North Korea since its creation at the very end of World War II. North Korea has existed in economic backslides and stagnation, inducing famines amongst most of the country since about the 1990s, and that's never really subsided since. One thing, however, that the North Korean government is always focused on is a forceful reunification with South Korea. Both of the Koreas actually would like to seek to reunify the entire peninsula, as it's a government prerogative from both sides, but South Korea has largely ditched the issue several decades ago because North Korea is so economically downtrodden and in such a bad condition that a peaceful reunification even of the Koreas would most likely lead to an economic collapse of the South as well. Pretty much the North would drag the South down if they reunified. However, North Korea knows that one of their only economic saving graces may be to actually try and unify with South Korea forcefully or peacefully, so that way they can try and, I guess, more or less, be a parasite onto the economy of South Korea and try and get some sort of progress for North Korea in that form. Nevertheless, that's never going to happen. That's the actual reality of the situation. North Korea is far too weak economically and militarily to ever be able to conduct anything successful on the Korean Peninsula, and this has led them to doing something else, which is selling coal in exorbitantly high amounts to the Chinese, and also selling weapons to anyone that will buy them around the world. If you see bad guys in a country, they have most likely gotten weapons in some way, shape, or form from North Korea. A lot of people don't know that. Like, for example, any of the poachers that you hear of inside the Democratic Republic of the Congo, most of them actually got their AKs from North Korea. Any kind of separatist faction inside of Africa usually buys their weapons from North Korea. In fact, North Korea actually has a black market and and I guess you could say a black economy that is centered around areas like Southeast Asia and also Central Africa, that where they set up North Korean-run factories, use local labor, which they kind of turn into slave labor of a sort, and use them to pump out a load of cheap, inexpensive small arms that they will be able to sell to nearby warlords so that way the Korean government can make some kind of cash. So that way they can then use it for other operations that the North Koreans would like. For example, buying a couple of Saabs from Sweden and then never paying them for those Saabs, making sure that they're banned completely from ever buying cars from Sweden again. But another thing that's really interesting is that they actually have sold a lot of weapons of their own, not just small arms, but incredibly large weapons like 220 millimeter unguided rockets to the Russian Federation. In fact, they've even provided ballistic missiles as well, which we believe takes a lot of North Korean economic activity to really achieve. But nevertheless, it seems as though that flow of weapons has been uninterrupted and will probably never stop. It's one of the things that we believe is helping the Russians to at least have some sort of a bit of wiggle room as far as their artillery or ammunition numbers are concerned. And this is something that the North Koreans and the Russians have really united over, is the North Korean desire for food, which the Russians have in abundance, and the Russian desire for weapons, which the North Koreans, in turn, actually have in a very high abundance, although the quality is incredibly low. Putin has apparently decided that this relationship is one of the most important ones that the Russian Federation has in the modern day, and he has decided to take it upon himself to conduct a state visit to none other than North Korea. This is something that you will probably never see again, because it's absolutely crazy. Let me show y'all what the North Koreans did to get ready for Putin arriving. This.
Look at that, man. They put him up just like the leader, the supreme leader, Putin, on the wall. Look at that.
Look at that, man. And they even put Russian up on the building.
Can you zoom in any on that? I'd be curious to see that up close.
Sadly, I cannot. But this one,
damn.
This one actually says "druvba," which means friends. It says it in Korean and Russian up here at the top of the building. It says friends specifically. And then this one says, let's see, I think it says Dovra, let's see, I can't understand that one, sadly, but this one does say friends on the right side of the building. And then moving on into our next picture, we also got to see that they put up a state portrait, a brand new one, mind you, of Kim Jong-un and Putin.
Oh my god, man, that looks so cringy. Like the Kim Jong Un picture looks worse now, I think, and also the Putin picture looks terrible. It reminds me of the way Kadyrov puts up his picture, like in his country.
Yeah, yeah, it really does, doesn't it? Like, no joke, it really does. And also, why in the world does it look like they put normal pictures of them into like a painted filter? You know, like you get on the iPhone, you put like the paint filter on it. Why does it look like that?
I think it might have been because it looks just like it.
And then we got to see, this is something interesting, actually, a very rare insight into North Korea. This is actually from a Russian news source that got into the country early, and they actually filmed what the North Korean preparations look like. This is a very rare insight, because to let y'all know, foreign journalists in Korea are heavily curtailed on what they're allowed to film and not allowed to film. So this is actually a very interesting insight into what the pre-ceremonial preparations look like in North Korea. And we see that they have a mass of people out here standing, preparing. You can actually see the Juche Tower out in the distance. And also, by the way, I'll show y'all where this is in Pyongyang here in a second. But moving on into our last clip, we then got to see that this was the little area that they had set up earlier that we had the picture of. They're panning it around. And we can see they have the place decked out. I mean, they've got every single building with a Russian and North Korean flag draped over it for this occasion. This is apparently a very big deal for North Korea, and I have a belief that because of all of the red carpet that they pulled out for this state visit, they are expecting probably a very major deal to occur with the Russian Federation. Probably most likely for the provision of more weapons and arms, if I was to take an assumption, but we don't really know what this will result in. But let me go show y'all where this is in North Korea before we move on to the next one. So, all of these preparations were being made specifically, and let me make sure that I can find the exact location right here. Because this is the Grand People's Study House, this is called, and the area that y'all saw them setting up is actually right here. It's this little building. Now, this building is actually a pretty special one because this is usually where Kim Jong-un and the general staff review the North Korean army during the military parades. They actually march straight down the street on Somon Street right down here past Kim Il-sung Square and then out the other side, and this is where the military parades are conducted. This is also where you see those massive crowds of people in Kim Il-sung Square that are holding the signs. You know the ones I'm talking about, Matthew, like those giant cardboard cutouts, and they'll flip them and they pop up like messages or pictures or something along those lines. That's where all this is done. And just to make sure that we geolocated this correctly, if you were in this square, which we actually have a Google picture of, which is very helpful, you can see the exact same buildings that I was talking about earlier. You can see where they're setting up the picture of Kim Jong-un and Putin, which is actually on this building right here, and that's the building behind it. They then drape the Russian and North Korean flags, and let me go see if I can get that again, onto the building right next door. So really quickly, this is actually something very interesting to note, is that they put a giant red drape over the portrait of Kim Jong-il and Kim Il-sung, which is actually incredibly disrespectful according to normal Korean traditions. Nevertheless, they did it so that way they could put up a portrait of Kim Jong-un and Putin over the exact same location. You can also see the draping staircases and the large pots right here that show that this is the exact same spot. And it shows that the North Koreans are willing to piss on tradition for the importance of this meeting. Not only that, but then when we move on to the other videos, we can also see this large like cutout on top of this building, which is right here. They actually switched it out, but it used to be this one, which I believe is the flag of the Korean People's Army or something along those lines. But they've switched that one out in recent times. They also have this one over here, which is like a pioneer blowing a bugle. I think they switched that one out as well. But nevertheless, let me show you the panoramic that they had. There is Juche Tower in the distance, and if we turn around, there is Juche Tower right there. So this does show that this massive state celebration will, of course, be in Kim Il-sung Square, which is one of the few upkept places in the entirety of North Korea. It's the only one that really looks good on cameras, and it's kept up for that specific reason. But anyways, moving on from that, Putin then arrived in North Korea today. He actually landed there, I believe, at the airport, which is very far north. It's like near Pyeongchang up here. But he landed at the airport, and he showed up in Pyongyang, and we got to see that there was a lot of Putin worship that was going on. Let me show you all the streets leading into Pyongyang. Here they are.
Oh my god, man, they got different portraits on all of them. Like, they got a sideways portrait of Putin, they got him looking straight on. That's messed up. There's no cars out here, man. Where is everybody?
Dude, they don't have cars in North Korea, man. Like, oh, this is just too much.
This is
really
crazy. Like, not a soul in sight anywhere. It's just like a ghost town out here.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's absolutely insane. It's like Ashgabat in Turkmenistan, but also then we got to see, of course, them acting all chummy. And I'll just show you all this. This is something fun. Here's Putin, and here's Kim Jong-un. That's all I'm going to say, and here's the clip.
Oh, after you. No, after you. You first. I don't want to go in there. You might have a booby trap set up. You go first. Make him walk around the car, man. That's a lot of exercise for him.
Dude, I mean, for Kim Jong-un right there, I think that's the most he's walked for about 9 years right there. That was a lot. But
It is.
But look at this, man. He went, go ahead. And then Kim Jong-un, no, you. Please, no, I'm Canadian. Please go. Oh, okay, I guess I'll go.
You remember when they had this similar incident back in the day? They were about to drink the champagne, and they were both waiting on each other to do it. They don't trust each other very clearly, and obviously they shouldn't because they're both like really maniacal dictators. But like they do this constantly on pretty much everything.
I mean, they really do, and this was just another instance of it. But what else we can get out of this that is really interesting and really important is that the Russians and the North Koreans are treating this like an important ordeal. Let me go get a global GDP list from top country to bottom. List of countries by GDP. Let me see if this list is organized. And it is, in fact, organized. God bless America. Okay, so here is every single country in the world categorized by their GDP. So it says that the Russians have a 2 trillion GDP, which we believe is an exaggeration. We believe it's actually around 1.2, 1.3 trillion dollars. But for now, we'll go with this number. So Russia is the 11th largest economy in the world. It comes behind Canada, Italy, Brazil, France, the UK, India, Japan, Germany, China, and the United States. Now, let us scroll down this list and let us see where North Korea lands on the GDP charts. Not seeing them yet. I'm still not.
North Korea's probably got that negative GDP.
Let's see here. We're getting kind of low down here. I mean, we're seeing countries that are way down there, like Palestine, for example. Not even a real country. It's actually number 129, right next to Chad. So let's see. Oh, look, North Korea. It has an estimated GDP of about $15 billion as of 2022. And Afghanistan is actually really close.
They're competing with Afghanistan, man. It's a close call. Any day now, they might take them over.
So now y'all can kind of get the idea of what I'm trying to get at here. They're treating this like a big deal, but North Korea economically has the same amount of activity right now as Afghanistan, which is run by the Taliban, which literally just overtook the country and threw it back into the quite literal middle dark ages. No joke. And they're on that economic level. Doesn't that seem a little desperate that they're treating this like such a big deal, considering that North Korea is an economically insignificant country that is a number 137 on the list, tied with Laos and Afghanistan for the spot? I mean, that seems like it would be pretty freaking bad. I mean, I don't think you can really exaggerate that. It's pretty terrible. But who's at the bottom? Let's see here. These countries are
Tuvalu.
Tuvalu, you mean?
What is that? I've never even heard of it.
It's a little tiny island. That's why I was like, that doesn't really count. I mean, it's literally like, here it is. It's this little chain of islands right here, and it's literally just one habitable island. So I was like, these don't really count because, it's like they're fairly wealthy for what they are, from what I understand. Let me see, where in the world is Haiti? Like, Haiti's got to be on the list somewhere down here at the dead bottom, right? Like, it can't be up there at all.
They probably didn't even make the list at this point. They probably just took them off of it.
Let's see, they couldn't have done that. I mean, they wouldn't have done them dirty like that. But North Korea isn't that far down, man. Like, we scroll down just a little bit, and we're already down here. But where in the hell is Haiti? Like, where did it go? Like, sorry, y'all, I'm getting distracted by that. Like, it should be on the chart, like, somewhere, and it should be down here near the bottom. And I'm not seeing it at all. It's got to be here. Come on, like, work with me here. There's no way that Haiti has a higher GDP. I think they really did remove
there it is. It's number 116.
No.
Yeah, there it is.
No way! Dude, Haiti has a bigger economy than North Korea? No way. I'm calling cap.
Man,
dude.
they got a guy called Barbecue running that country, so that's really bad for North Korea to be behind barbecue.
Not only are they cooking up people in the streets, they're cooking up that GDP. I mean, like, they're actually up there. Like, I cannot believe that. They're in between Mozambique and Armenia. Like, I cannot believe that Haiti is actually up there like that. That's crazy. So just to put this into perspective for everyone, once again, on an economic level, Putin is treating the North Koreans like they were a massive ally to Russia, and economically, they're smaller than Haiti, which currently is a hellhole that is being run by a warlord called Barbecue, who eats people alive. And apparently, North Korea, which is on a lower economic level than the cannibal warlord eating people alive in Haiti, is very important to Putin. Now, that puts it into perspective how desperate the Russian Federation really is by this point. I don't think there's a better metric for that than this. But once again, this is what we're dealing with in the modern world, is Russia that is this desperate. They're probably trying to get more war support in terms of material equipment like artillery and long-range munitions, and they'll exchange that for food from the Russian Federation. But a lot of people have been talking about this and saying, what in the hell is Putin doing in a country that is economically less powerful than Haiti? What are they doing here? And a lot of people have been saying that these key agreements might mean that Putin gets more weapons. Some other people are saying that it's just a distraction. And some people are a little undecided on this whole thing and don't really know what to make of it. But Matthew, what are people really thinking about this whole deal with Putin and North Korea? And what are you thinking about it too? Now, given the fact that they're less economically powerful than Haiti.
So we're told by the Russian government that Putin went to North Korea to actually sign some quote-unquote key agreements, whatever that might mean. So the question to y'all is, what does that mean? So 86% said Putin needs more weapon from North Korea, while 9% said Putin is setting up a distraction, and 2% said it seems simply like a routine meeting. And to me, honestly, obviously, I think Putin needs more weapons, But at the same time, if you'll notice how far out of the way North Korea is going to basically roll out the red carpet for Putin, they are also very desperate themselves, obviously. So we have two very desperate countries who are very poor at this point, basically trying to create a communist sandwich to try to brew up something, try to create some resources. And it's not really going to be anything significant in the Western sense, but for them, there's probably something brewing up in the background to trade weapons and maybe even North Korean soldiers. That could be on the table as well. We simply don't know yet. But also, I would not rule out the possibility that Putin might be setting up a distraction because North Korea has been acting up quite a bit within the recent weeks with South Korea, doing some border skirmishes and things like that. And it's really starting to get pretty frequent. So it seems to be coinciding with Putin's visit as well. So there's several things that could be happening here. But the fact that North Korea is rolling out the red carpet and making Putin feel very special as a dictator, showing up there in North Korea, I think there is something big brewing under the surface, like the Enforcer said. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that it probably is going to be some sort of a major deal. It's going to most likely be a weapons for food deal on an even larger scale than we've seen in the past. Because we know one thing, North Korea is probably not going to be starting a war with South Korea anytime soon. It would be practically infeasible for them in any large form. So they would rather trade those weapons and keep the North Korean population alive by getting them food for now and surviving in the short run and possibly securing themselves a future in the long run as well. So I would have a feeling that this is some sort of a major trade deal that's going to be happening here in the near future. And so with that, I hope we address that well. And while we make our way back towards the Ukraine war, I wanted to give y'all a small Chinese-Taiwan update that we got today, just off of the coast of the Pinggu County Island area. We were able to see that a Type 94 nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarine of the People's Liberation Army Navy surfaced incredibly close to a Taiwanese fishing vessel. From what we understand, we do not know if the Chinese submarine had any idea that the Taiwanese fishing vessel was right there, but it actually surfaced close enough to Pinggu County that you can see a little bit of Pinggu County right off there to the right. Well, one of the islands in Pinggu County right there. The submarine loitered here motionless, according to the report, until another Chinese service vessel arrived to the submarine, and then both of them sailed out of the area and back towards mainland China. According to the information that we have, this was clearly across the median line inside the Taiwan Strait, and was possibly showing some sort of an attempt at low-level coercion in some form, or it may have been an attempt by the Chinese to drop off an infiltration crew into Pinggu County to try and get a lot more reconnaissance and information on the ground on the Taiwanese defensive positions that may exist in this island chain. We're not entirely sure, but we have a much closer picture of the Type 94 right here that was taken by the fishing vessel, and it is wild to see a Chinese submarine this close to Pinggu County, which is an official part of Taiwan, pretty much almost within their territorial waters or inside of it, and we do not know why it surfaced and why it was here. I actually hypothesized a little bit earlier in the day that it may have been an attempt to drop off a covert team of Chinese special forces onto the island, and some people are going to go, oh, they're going to blow stuff up. No, they're most likely going to be there to try and conduct some sort of reconnaissance, and then eventually be picked back up again, and then relay that reconnaissance on what they found on these islands back to the Chinese mainland. At least things that may not be able to be seen by satellite, or may only be known by some locals or some members of the ROC military that may have some loose lips and may end up volunteering some information if they were persuaded to through pretty much innocent-looking means. Another thing that they could be doing is that the submarine could have had a incident where the vessel maybe started to run on emergency power, and so they had to have a escort vessel bring it back to mainland China. There's a whole bunch of things that could have happened that led to the surfacing of the submarine in this particular area, but nevertheless, it is so close to Pinggu County when it surfaced that we would have to believe that there is some kind of an intentional act that was meant by the Chinese with the surfacing of the submarine. Not only that, this is also one of the largest submarines within the People's Liberation Army Navy. The Type 94 submarine, I think, is the largest by displacement. And so for that reason, this may also have been another low-level coercion show of force attempt onto the Republic of China. But still, something odd to see and interesting to note once again that tensions haven't really died down in the Taiwan Strait. It's just that it's really out of our periphery at the moment. But moving on from that, we also got bombshell news today out of India that India has decided to ditch the Russians as a weapons partner and are now going to be teaming up with the United States in the future and buying our weapon systems instead, deciding to get rid of their BMP-2s and go with the latest generation of Stryker armored personnel carriers, and you can see one pictured right there. This is apparently because the Indians are once again starting to grow more distant from the Russians and the Chinese, especially considering the Chinese-Indian border relations that are currently devolving right now in the area of Kashmir and also within the area of Arunachal Pradesh, which is to the far east of India, where the Chinese are currently trying to exert territorial claims across the entirety of the province inside of India. And we also understand that this is an extension of the Indians being shown through the war in Ukraine that Russian weaponry is incredibly poor quality. It looks as though that the Indians are once again starting to draw themselves closer and closer to the United States, which is working for U.S. and Western ambitions as we hope to draw India and Sri Lanka into a pro-Western coalition in the future, so that way we will have an indoor access to the middle of the Indian Ocean, where the Chinese are trying to currently grow their own sphere of influence through the One Belt, One Road program around the entirety of Southeast Asia, throughout the entirety of East Africa and the Middle East, and also Central Asia as well, creating pretty much a self-contained sphere of influence that would, at least in perfect laboratory conditions, not really be able to be interfered by foreign powers, considering that the Indian Ocean would be pretty much the Chinese Ocean. But now with the Indians once again distancing themselves farther and farther away from the Russians and the Chinese, it's making it much more likely that this sphere of influence will not be perfectly self-contained, and there always will be a U.S. or Western presence within the Indian Ocean well into the future. But with that, we're going to be moving on from that bombshell news that came out of India today, and we're now going to be moving all the way across and back into the Ukraine war news with what's going on right off the coast of Florida, which, funnily enough, pertains directly to the Ukraine war. We were able to hear that P-8 Poseidons, as well as a large escort fleet of U.S. destroyers, are currently keeping an eye on the Russian flotilla as they're currently right off the coast of Miami. They're somewhere halfway in between the Bahamas and Miami at the moment, but right now there are several P-8 Poseidons circling the area, and currently on the surface, His Majesty's Canadian ship, the Ville de Quebec, the United States Coast Guard cutter Stone, the USS Truxton, and the USS Delbert D. Black have currently shadowed the small Russian flotilla as it's transiting its way up the Florida coast. We are expecting that the United States of America, as well as our Western partners like the Royal Canadian Navy, will continue to keep their eyes on the situation and make sure to thwart any kind of Russian aggressive actions that may try and veer the small Russian flotilla into U.S. territorial waters. It appears that we're keeping a very sharp eye on them, putting a lot of effort and attention into this, which is giving us a really good idea that things are probably going to be kept well under control, at least in this area. But moving on from that, and before we move on into our Italian news, before we finally actually make our way back into the physical area around Ukraine, a lot of people have been talking about the North Koreans and the little Russian-North Korean romance that is happening today in between the two countries. A lot of people have been wondering if a North Korea-Russian alliance would pose a major issue for Ukraine's success in this war. And we already know that that the Ukrainians have brought it up in the past, but a lot of people are wondering if the Russians and the North Koreans got together and got some of that Chungong energy together, would they be able to actually pose a serious threat to Ukraine's future in this war? And a lot of people are saying, hell no. North Korea barely has any resources at all. And some people are saying somewhat, and some others are saying that it could hurt Ukraine. It's actually fairly split with a lot of people believing different things about what could be happening with North Korea or North Korean-Russian relations. And Matthew, share with us, what are people thinking about that? Is North Korea a serious threat for Ukraine as far as their support is concerned to Russia, or is it not? And what are you thinking about it as well?
So the poll question is actually pretty evenly split on the results. It looks like 34% said North Korea barely has any resources, so it really won't be a major issue for Ukraine, while 32% said somewhat, but not really, and 29% said yes, it could severely hurt Ukraine's war efforts. And on this one, if North Korea is acting alone and they don't have any other partners that are sort of informally joining this partnership here between Russia and North Korea, then I really don't think it's going to hurt Ukraine very much at all, because North Korea barely has any resources. And also, like Andy L mentioned in a live chat just a moment ago, the shells that are being sent by North Korea are failing at a pretty high rate when they get into Ukraine and they're used by the Russians. So even if they have some resources to send, it's not very reliable. And also, I really don't think Russia's looking for North Korea's equipment. The only thing that's very concerning to me, and something I've always expected for a very long time, is China is probably using North Korea as a proxy to give things to North Korea in secret, and then use North Korea as that proxy to send things to Russia to then use in the war. Of course, that is speculation. I don't have evidence of that right now, but logic tells me with China and North Korea being close allies, or at least loose allies, that is certainly a possibility. And with Putin going to North Korea and creating such a big deal out of this and signing quote-unquote key agreements, they're making such a big deal out of what seems to be a nothing burger, which is North Korean resources. So to me, there seems like there might be something else brewing under the surface that we're really not aware of. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that the North Koreans pose a somewhat significant threat to Ukraine, but not a major one. The North Koreans, while being a massively economically underdeveloped country, and not only that, being a wildly backwards country as well, with really no contact with the outside world, and not only that, going through endless famines, a big reason why they're always going through endless famines is because the North Korean government, which is a centrally planned economy, meaning that the central government, the Kim family, and then disseminated through the rest of their underlings, have complete control over economic development and economic activity on every single level, continued to emphasize war production over everything else. Even when the people were starving, the munitions continued to flow into North Korean arsenals. This means that the North Koreans do have a massive stockpile of ammunition that they can provide to the Russians, and also a massive amount of trading power with the Russians on that alone. The Russians are desperate for ammunition. It's something that they are continuously trying to produce more of, much like everyone in the world is currently. But from what we understand, they are still producing not that much of ammunition of really any type. The North Koreans, however, produce every single variety of Russian ammunition types or Soviet ammunition types that would be needed. And that means, as in also, Matthew, is it just me or is it hot as hell down here?
Actually just turned the AC down, so it should be cooling off in a minute.
I was about to say, dude, I was like, I'm boiling alive in here, and this fan's almost on max right now. But
man, this is North Korean talk, man. I'm just hearing about it. I'm like, oh god, I'm getting nervous, man. Kim's gonna send some shells that don't work. Bing Shaling.
Yeah, man, I'm about to go, you know, something like that. That's actually Mandarin. But anyways, moving on from that, I would say the North Koreans really, like, they pose a little bit of a concern, but not that much, because much like Andy L and Enforcer Matt also brought up, North Korean munitions don't really have a high success rate. They actually have a pretty high dud rate. I believe it's around 40%, which is abysmal, because usually you would want at least 90% of your munitions to work, and even then, that's not really a great success rate here in the West any longer. Usually our success rate has to be somewhere above 95 to 97% for it to be not considered a faulty weapon. And so going off of that, I would say that while they do pose a bit of a concern, it's not that much of a concern. As far as Matthew was saying with the Chinese, after having read a lot about the understanding of Chinese relations around the world, and what people have been writing about them and what past decades have shown about the Chinese, I'm actually doubting that they are providing any major level or any at all lethal aid to the Russian Federation. Because something that's actually interesting, Matthew, that's been heavily underscored so far in this war is that there is a small island right here. Let me see here. I'm trying to see if I can find it. Where in the hell is it? There is a small little island on this river, on the Amur River, that the Chinese actually claimed from the Russians, because they republished a map in 2017 redefining their borders, and a part of the borders that they actually claimed was, of course, Taiwan. It was pretty much all the islands, including the Spratly Islands in the South China Sea and the Paracel Islands. They also claimed the Arunachal Pradesh region of India, and also this specific area right here, which you can hardly see, but it's right there, in Kashmir as a part of China. All of that is a part of China, according to China. And then there was this one little island in the Amur River that the Chinese claimed was theirs, but it's owned by the Russian Federation. Meaning that they are actually currently in an ongoing border dispute with the Russian Federation and claiming a part of Russia as a part of China. And although the island is uninhabited, the Russians, I believe, still have not relinquished their claim. And I believe that the Chinese would be on an unfriendly enough term, although this isn't a major ordeal, it's just a small island, that would be a big enough mark in the Chinese mind against Russia, probably to provide them with non-lethal aid, but not with lethal aid, because they want to. Go ahead.
I would have to disagree with you on that because I understand what you're saying. There are some disputes here with their border, and that will cause some tensions. However, I think the way that China views this war in Ukraine, which is obviously expending a ton of Russian resources, and it's also dragging on Western resources as well, is we're sending a lot of equipment to Ukraine ourselves. I think China views this the same way the West views it as well. When the West supports Ukraine in their war effort, we view it sort of in two parts. It's helping out Ukraine, which is going to be hopefully a Western ally in the future, and it's also wearing down the Russian military. So essentially, we are waging, sort of in a secondary sense, sort of like a proxy war to sort of like wear down the Russian resources. That's the way we view it. I think China also views this the same way as well. If China can get military aid to Russia, they're going to try to wear down the West because we're going to send more aid to Ukraine to try to defend against it. And it kind of operates on a dual service like that. That's the way I see it, at least.
Maybe so, but then again, looking at it from an opposite perspective, to play the devil's advocate here for a minute, the Chinese don't really have that much of an ambition to really help out the Russians because considering that, yes, if they provided equipment to the Russians, it would wear down the West more. Wouldn't an incredibly weak Russia, both politically, diplomatically, and economically, favor a Chinese position in East Asia a lot more than a stronger Russia that may be able to stand a chance? I think, in my opinion, the Chinese probably do want the Russians to be in a far weakened state because China does have the economic ability at this moment to be able to rebuild Russia at the end of the war and probably have them rebound economically pretty quickly after they are defeated in this war. But they would probably want them to be defeated because once they're defeated, much like every other country in the world that China has drawn into their sphere, the Russians will be economically desperate. They'll be looking for any way out. The West isn't going to provide it, but China will be their savior and will say, let us come in, let us give you these incredible loans that you'll never be able to repay. You'll forever be indebted to China, but you will end up getting some economic prosperity out of this. It's just that you'll be forever anchored to us. And the Russians will go, hell yeah, let's do it. And then they will forever become a part of the Chinese sphere and a minor power. They would be to China the same way Japan is to America. The largest economic power in the sphere next to the United States, but still not as large. And I think that China would probably want to see Russia get in that kind of position. So for that reason alone, I think that the Chinese probably aren't supplying them any kind of lethal aid because from a Chinese perspective, not only on sphere building, but also on security, if the Russians are heavily weakened, they're not going to be taking any aggressive actions in border disputes against the Chinese. They're actually going to just let China do whatever they want, including retaking that small island inside the Amur River. And if that's the case, China would much rather see Russia weakened and then join the sphere after the war than trying to support them and wear down the West, which while it would be good in the short term, it may ensure that Russia remains strong in the long term and that they wouldn't be able to draw them into the Chinese sphere. And the Chinese are always long-term thinkers, not short-term thinkers.
Maybe so. Maybe so. That's a good point.
And man, you're just like, maybe so, maybe so. I was like,
Man, it was too much to follow. I still got to grab chats and stuff. I was like, I can't follow all this. I can get bits and pieces.
Man, that's fair. That's fair, man. I respect that. I respect that. But with that, I hope we were able to address that well. And hopefully we'll see who is who thinks who's right in the chat. Doesn't matter. But I would like to see what y'all are thinking. Is Matthew's side right? Is my side right? I mean, they both make incredibly fair points, but just to throw out two different perspectives on the issue, what do y'all think the Chinese would rather do? Do you think they would rather have a possibly stronger Russia but wear down Western forces, not just in NATO but in the United States? Or do you think they'd rather see a weakened Russia that they can take advantage of at the end of the war and permanently draw into the Chinese sphere of influence, both securing their sphere building ambitions and also their economic interests and security interests well into the future. But with that,
You gotta admit though, like it's a decent theory on my side with the North Korean proxy weapon shipments.
oh
If
yeah, it's
China
not
is
bad.
doing that, it's good because China is very sneaky. China never does anything, hardly ever, sort of like direct and head on. They always do things through back channels, and they do it honestly pretty smart and strategically. China really thinks through their strategy. There are some things, of course, like the economy, which are not going so well, but typically, from what I've seen myself, the way China deals with other countries geopolitically is usually pretty well thought out. And I think they would also be smart enough to not send weapons directly to Russia because obviously China's trying to keep up this image that they're playing both sides here, like they're a peacemaker, when obviously they're not. It would make sense for them to send the weapons through North Korea to help out Russia to, like I said, wear down the West and also these other factors as well.
I mean that is true, and especially about the Chinese being very sneaky. That's one thing that I think has to be massively overplayed in the modern world, even if it's being overplayed in excess, is that the Chinese are very, very sneaky and they're very cunning people. I mean, they are like on a governmental level, by the way, because some people are going to go, oh, look at him talking about the Chinese. No, it's the Chinese government. I just say the Chinese because I'm not going to go through word salad to talk about the Chinese every single time I talk about them. But the Chinese are incredibly cunning and they're just incredibly smart with their long-term plans. They think, and what's very interesting even about their war planning, from what we understand, is that they do not think about defeating the enemy decisively in battle. They actually think primarily about defeating their enemies in their minds before they even reach the battle. So that way, by the time a real battle begins, they pretty much already won that battle because they're in your head, and they're making you think that fighting them is pretty much going to be pointless because they're going to beat you anyways. So why fight as hard? Just give up instead. The Chinese are masters of this kind of thing. And of course, if they can try and weaken the West, but also make sure that they're not directly involved, they may use North Korea as a proxy. Maybe so. I mean, there's a lot of good points that have been brought up here. I don't think Matthew's wrong. I don't think I'm wrong. They're just two different ideas on the same token. But I still want to know what y'all think about it. Does China want a weak Russia, or do they want to weaken the West instead? Is it one or the other? I've seen a lot of people saying they probably want to weaken Russia. I've seen some people saying that they probably want to weaken the West even more than weaken Russia. And so I am wondering, what are y'all thinking about that? But anyways, moving on from the whole Chinese deal with North Korea, it is now time for us to finally get on back into the area of Ukraine and start getting into the actual Ukraine war news of what's been going on around the front lines. And there is a lot that has been going on in this area so far today that is unbelievable. I mean, y'all, we've been here for an hour already. We've been covering this news for one straight hour, and we haven't even gotten into Ukraine. And there's still a load of big news to cover inside of Ukraine. And so we're going to be moving on into our location unknowns. But before we do, I understand, Matthew, that we actually have a couple of questions to address in the chat. So what do we got, Matthew?
So we've got some very good questions to address, and first up, we have a very generous donation, actually 3 of them combined into one, 3 super stickers from BC Skyman. He put in a combined $150, which is tremendous support and the biggest one of the night. And huge shout out to BC for always supporting the work and helping to keep us running. And BC did not have any comments to address. He just put in the super stickers, and I'm trying to quickly go back and see here what it was. Let's see here. It was the Doge jumping up in the fireworks. It's very happy. Also, he put in the game controller, said super effective. Not like the Russian or the North Korean shells. And also, we see the YouTube creature riding off on the rockets. So, very cool. And thank you very much, BC, for that. And Enforcer, what say you?
Man, that Doge be going super wild. But beyond that, I gotta thank you so much for the unbelievably massive support, BC Skyman. I've got to say that you were a legend of the channel, and I got to thank you so much for enjoying it, that you would want to support it and help this channel to keep on running. It's an absolutely incredible thing to always have you here with us and always have you enjoying the channel enough that you find it worthwhile to support. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here and be able to keep this channel running. We wouldn't be able to talk about the incredible things that we get to talk about each and every night and cover all of this historic news with each and every one of y'all. And so I got to thank you so much once again for that incredible support. Massive support. It's the biggest support of the night so far from a single person. And I got to thank you so much once again for being an absolute old guard of the channel, having been here since day 4 of the war and been here with us pretty much ever since. And so with that, Thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And also, by the way, BC Skyman, a little bit of an update. We should have the label on the bandages and have them in the mail by tomorrow. We've had a little bit of a difficulty with that, trying to figure out how in the world do we even label it. And also, we got to throw in a couple of extra LSA goodies into the box before we ship them. But it should be out to get here incredibly soon. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to Howard Turgell, who puts in a $50 donation. And thank you, Howard, as well, for that very generous support, and also for being a longtime channel viewer as well. He says, more tacos for Taco Tuesday. And it is Tuesday. I almost forgot. It is Tuesday. And I didn't have any tacos today, sadly, but I wish I had some. He said, LSA, thank you for providing us with so much information.
And I got to thank you so much for the support, Howard Turgell, for Taco Tuesday, the best Tuesday of every week. It's the only Tuesday of every week, but it is an amazing day. It's Taco Day, and I love myself some fish tacos. Matthew loves fish tacos, too. They're the greatest.
Oh, yes.
They're the best. You just can't beat a fish taco. You just can't, simply put. But beyond that, I also have to say thank you so much for the kind words, Howard Turgell, and enjoying this channel so much and having some kind words to throw in as well. It is absolutely wonderful to know that people enjoy this channel every single day that we're live on air. We're more than honored to be here, and that's why we keep to the 6-day schedule religiously, because we are as honored to be here and have all of y'all here with us as y'all are to be on this channel and to enjoy the news that we work on all day and put out. Also, really quickly, Howard Turgell, while you're talking about you really enjoy the info that's provided and enjoy the information, I'm going to let y'all know something that I'm really excited about in the background. It's still going to be a good while away from ever being put onto a screen, but we are currently, right now, writing the script that will be used for our first long-form documentary video on this channel ever. It is not going to be a 6-minute long documentary. It is not going to be a 10-minute long documentary. It is probably going to be in the range of 15 to 25 minutes long. It is going to be a very well-researched documentary, and the first documentary that we're going to make on this channel is actually going to be about China and Taiwan, and a possible invasion of Taiwan by the Chinese, and what that would look like, what kind of military forces would be involved, and what kind of tactics the Chinese would most likely use. I'm already working, kind of in the background, on a second follow-up long-form documentary, once again on the Chinese, considering that we don't really cover the Chinese a lot on this channel, but they are a very large topic of the modern world, and they are the second largest country economically and militarily in the world currently behind the United States. I've also planned on making a second long-form documentary on Chinese national ambitions over the next few decades and their master plan of trying to become the preeminent global superpower by 2049. We have loads of stuff that we're working on right now in the background, but these two documentary-style videos are really big. We're still going to be working on animating and all that as well, although I really don't know how that's going to go. Some people are like, why don't you get an animator? Well, we looked into that, and I got to thank everyone so much for reaching out and giving us possible animations to use, but everyone was charging like $500 to $1,500 for like 30 seconds of animation, which we would go broke if we tried to do that for like a 15 to 25 minute long video. So I have to figure out how to do the animations myself. Otherwise, they just won't happen because we simply cannot afford that kind of stuff. But nevertheless, we are going to make it happen, and we are going to try and make them the highest quality, most well thought out productions possible, and hopefully it will be the beginning of all kinds of long-form documentaries on every single topic in the modern world that we can think of, including the Western world as a whole, NATO, maybe even France, trying to make the French the leader of a new European sphere, and what Macron's plan is for that. We will try and go into everything we can. We may even go into some U.S. topics, like, for example, how different bureaus or different parts of the American bureaucracy works, to explain that. We would love to do all kinds of really cool stuff with that, you know, and hopefully we will be able to, but it really will depend how these first two long-form documentaries go, and we don't even know how many of those we can actually make practically within a span of time, because considering that we are working pretty much all day, every day, most of the time, just covering what we're doing right now, which is live streams at night and the short war videos in the middle of the day, there's not really a lot of extra time for other things. Because, you know, of course, we still have to live our lives. Like, we have to go get food, or we have to cook food, or we have to do other things just in general, just like running errands, you know, like making sure we have clean clothes and everything. And that all does take time. unfortunately. Although I would like to be as efficient as possible, sadly, there is just human inefficiencies that are required in life that cut out time in the day. So we are going to be trying as hard as we can to get the stuff out. I'm not sure if Matthew is ever going to make long-form documentaries of his own, because I know that the first two are going to be entirely by me. But one day, Matthew may make his own long-form documentaries on what he wants to talk about, which are probably going to be
Oh, they're coming.
Oh, they're coming.
They're coming soon. I made a long form documentary about, I think it was like almost a year ago, or maybe longer than that, on how drones win wars these days. And for some reason, that video has recently blown up. It only had like 30,000 views like a year ago. Somehow it's now jumping up to like 70 and 80,000, like out of the blue, like nothing. I don't even understand how. But I think the long forms have a potential to be big videos, but we have to put pretty big work into them.
Well, you know something else that was very interesting, Matthew? I went back and looked at the AK video lately. Did you see that one's been slowly growing just over months now? Like, it's gotten up to like 50,000 views or something at this point.
Yeah, those are like slow burning videos, like not the breaking news ones. They just go like a long time, and then they finally blow up.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's weird. So I guess with that, because usually with the way we run this channel currently, it's kind of an instant gratification thing, even for us when we make these videos, or live streams for that matter, because everything's breaking news, so it's always happening live. So there's always a constant desire for everyone to get breaking news. So when we put out breaking news, everyone's Johnny on the spot all on that one day, and then the video dies after really day one, and no one ever watches it again. But with longer form videos like that I mean, the slow burn on those is insane. I mean, you'll gain like 30,000 views over 3 months, so you get 10,000 views a month, and we usually get like 10,000 views in the first, like, I think it's like 20 minutes of publishing a video, or something shorter than that, I think. But still, you know, those are videos we would like to keep doing, and we may even get back to doing gun reviews. Although we got to figure out how we're going to do that, because the last time we went, got to give a huge shout out, by the way, to Jay Bagwell, who got us to the range we were using for that review. But they didn't allow you to rapid fire the guns, and also there was a greater deal of etiquette that had to be conducted there to make sure that we didn't get in trouble from anyone at the range, which is completely understandable. But we need to be able to do things that are actually interesting for y'all to really enjoy it. So we are trying to figure that out and see how we can do that in the future. But for now, we're at a bit of a impasse with that. Although I will say we have loads of guns that are just ready to review right here and right now. It's just that we got to eventually find a way to get somewhere where we can review them and film it. But hopefully that'll be someday here in the future. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, Howard Turgell, and thank you so much once again for supporting the kind words. And I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update of what we're doing in the background, and also, by the way, just not trying to plug the Patreon or anything, but I may actually release a rough draft of the script for that video on Patreon. Also, really quickly, I just want to give a disclaimer. I'm not going to be looking for critiques or anything, because, of course, I'll be critiquing it in the background on my own and probably fixing it, but I'll just be showing y'all the process that's going into making it, just so that way y'all can see what's actually going on behind the scenes, because it's a great deal. But with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. Thank you so much once again for support, Howard Turgell, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the last question of this segment, and then we're going to be moving back into the Ukrainian frontline news.
All right, so the last super chat of the segment is going to go to Andy L, who threw in two $50 donations and for a combined total of $100. Quick math. And thank you very much, Andy, for that support. And no comments to address. But of course, Andy L is a longtime channel legend, and he's always supporting our work. And we appreciate it very much, Andy, and thank you very much for that. And Enforcer, what say you?
And a huge shout out to Andy L. And I got to thank you so much for the massive support of the channel tonight. Once again, another legend of the channel, helping it to keep on running. And I got to thank you so much once again for really helping this channel be possible and making it a reality. Because if it was not for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, I also got to thank you, by the way, for singing those EOTechs again. Like, I can't thank you enough for that, because EOTechs are great. Love EOTechs. Can't have enough of EOTechs. And you sent 2 of them, and that was incredibly cool. We still thank you massively for that, because we love EOTech. Don't we, man? We're not sponsored by them or anything, but we love EOTech, right? Like, they're good.
Man, I love EOTech, but I love Aimpoint a little bit more, but it's just not in my budget. EOTech's really not in my budget either, but I got one of those way back in the day as a gift, and I've just kind of had it ever since, but I've never been able to get a second one. So Andy L sent some, and I was like, oh, thank God.
Oh, thank God. But anyways, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're now going to be moving on into our location unknowns, where we got to see some Ukrainian MiG-29s launching some AGM-88 HOMs. And Mr. Breeze shooting the breeze.
Shout out to Mr. Breeze. Speaking of breeze, I'm feeling that AC kicking in, and it's feeling sweet.
Ooh, man, it was getting hot down here, wasn't it? I mean, it was a sauna.
Smoking. Hotter than a Russian factory on fire, burning at full steam, you know?
Ooh, get him. But anyways, well, you see them firing the harm right there. Look at it go. Oh, wait a minute. That wasn't a harm. That was an air-to-air missile. Huh. Cool. Well, anyways, then I think they moved on to firing harms. Yep, and there it goes. Now we see them taking that hard left. We see them firing off some more right here as well. Left pylon will go first, most likely. Oh, actually, they're dropping bombs. What do you know? What the hell am I talking about? You know, it would be fun to fly a MiG-29 like that.
It probably would be until you have to eject or something like that.
And I'm sure that's fun too. It's like a roller coaster the whole way. But with that, that's the end of that clip. Really nice to see those MiG-29s up there in the skies. And moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see that apparently the Ukrainians are beginning to manufacture new munitions. This is apparently a new Ukrainian-made 73mm grenade that is used inside of a BMP-1's 73mm 2A28 Grom, which is really nice to see. Really cool to know that Ukrainian manufacturers are able to start producing these kinds of munitions, because they're the basic kind of munitions that help to make the war possible on a day-to-day basis. Moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see a picture of a Lancet getting incredibly close to a Ukrainian recon drone. Whoosh! But you rarely ever get to see a Lancet like that just out there in the open. But I gotta say that the Lancet is a wonky-looking drone with that, like, 8-wing layout. You don't see a lot of drones like that. I mean, you really just don't. But anyways, moving on from that and on into our next bit of location unknown news, we also got to see Ruski Rambo Bliet. This man, I don't know what he's on. I think it's bath salts, but check it out. It's actually kind of funny.
Oh, yeah. I think he's called the blue.
I think he, dude, I think he is. He's got the blue Bliet.
That's about the level of cringe I'd expect from a Russian.
Oh no, he posted cringe.
He's imagining the big battles that he never will fight.
Dude, he's imagining that he's the homeless man in the back alley stealing a purse from a from a lady who's walking at night. That's why he's flinging around the knives like that. That was some cool stuff, y'all. I mean, goodness gracious. Steven Seagal even bowed to this man for the amazing efforts that he just did right there. But this man is tweaking, no doubt about that. Anyways, we got to see that a lot of Russians apparently will no longer be tweaking, as they've been denied the tweak. Oh!
Oh my goodness, man. Now this right here is nothing really to dance about. It's not good to dance about people, you know, passing on or dying or something like that, but these losses are juicy. Like 7 Bobcats, I'm telling you what, 1,230 troops, Ruski invaders, I'm telling you, this is too juicy.
I mean, I'm telling you, man, it's pretty bad. And 1,230 Russian soldiers were knocked out over the past 24 hours. Pretty freaking high numbers. 20 armored personnel carriers, 40 supply trucks, 16 main battle tanks, 32 artillery systems, 20 drones, 1 cruise missile, and 7 Bobcat skid steers. I mean, this day was chock full of fun. Not for the Russians, but for the Ukrainians. And we were able to see that out there on the front lines, it certainly was looking that that was the case. We were able to see that in the area of Vovchansk today, the Ukrainians are continuing on their offensive actions. And we can see that drones have been sent out above the city to take a look at what the city of Vovchansk is looking like currently during the battles. You can see the drone here getting some altitude so that way you can begin to fly over the city and show what is currently going on with the battles still unfolding below the drone. Also, by the way, everyone, I just thought I'd mention this really quickly since so many of y'all are here. If y'all would like to subscribe, we very rarely give a shout out to this, but I'm giving a limited time offer because I don't think it'll be around that long. But if you want to subscribe, right now, it probably would be a good time because we are only 50 subscribers away from 226,000. So if you want to be the 226,000 subscriber, maybe a bragging right, maybe not, I don't know. But you could subscribe right now because the chances are really high that if you subscribe, you probably will end up being the 226,000 subscriber. But with that, that's the end of that clip. Really interesting to see the lands below. And meanwhile, we also got to see that the Ukrainians were continuing to drop heavy glide bombs onto the Russian Federation forces just outside the built-up area. Once again, to lay out where we understand the Ukrainians to be at the moment, according to our frontline maps, we understand that they've taken this building right here that the mouse cursor is circling over. They also have about half of the city block that's right down here where the mouse cursor is circling as well. They are also in control of the built-up area and the area just beyond that where that small radio tower is. Everything else is in Russian control if you look further north, beyond the things I just listed. But here's the clip, and it will show Ukrainian glide bombs impacting their targets. And we see one actually impacted where we believe the Ukrainian forces are, and one impacted up where the Russians certainly are. I'm assuming that the Russians must not be, the Ukrainians must not be in that building because the Ukrainians are hitting that thing pretty heavily. Possibly showing that some frontline maps need to be updated because the Ukrainians may not be in control of that building. And we see the smoke continuing to rise.
Smoky.
Smoky blade, smoky the butter blade.
Call in the French toast, man, because it's burning up out here. They need that wildfire prevention.
Man, it looks like some Russians were digging for French toast today, but the Ukrainians stopped them. The Ukrainians knocked out an actual special equipment vehicle today on film in the area. No lie, no joke. Boosh! And there it goes. There goes the excavator. Right there.
What were they digging? Trenches or graves?
Ooh, dude, that was actually pretty good. Pretty smart, man. I like it. Respectable, respectable. Moving on from that, however, and on into our next bit of news, just a little bit of ways away, we got to see that the Russians are still continuing to surrender around the Vovchansk area. Here's a Russian surrendering to some Ukrainian soldiers. Get
Very
down on the
smart man.
ground!
The smartest thing he's ever done in his life. The first mistake was joining the Russian military or getting snagged or dragged into it, and this was the best thing he ever did right here. Look at that. He's in good hands now.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. But we can see them picking him up and taking him away.
Like that one guy's even trying to hand him his helmet. He's like, here you go, but oh, tee, I forgot your hands are behind your back, blia.
Dude, he went, oopsies, but he's moving on from that and into the next clip. We also got to see a T-72 got destroyed in this area, and we got to see this on none other than a beautiful tablet. Oh!
Ух, ебу, блядь! Что там? На, блядь, смотри, блядь, хотел, на, детонат!
Mom, get the camera!
Fixing. Oh, wow.
The celebration.
Celebration.
Celebrate good times. Come on.
Man, these guys are pure skill and Red Bull. That's all they are. Just skill and full of Red Bull.
Man, and I'm telling you what, man, it is pure skill because currently we're hearing that more Ukrainian forces are entering Hloboke and are beginning to retake the city, according to the 92nd Brigade. Very good news, and hopefully Hloboke will be entirely within Ukrainian hands here in the very near future. But once again, the Vovchansk front is looking fairly promising at the moment for Ukrainian forces. Meanwhile, moving on down into the area of Spitove, we got to see that the Russians were narrowly missed by an FPV drone. Блядь!
Oh.
Сука, блядь, stick it нахуй.
Стёба, останавливайся!
Vadim, punch it quick!
Блин!
He's like, bro, get out!
I think for one of the first times ever, their like chain link fence around the truck might have actually worked.
Possibly. Now he's out with a gat.
Все целы, нормально.
He's like, let's group up, guys, in one big area so the next drone can take us all out. He's like, okay, let's get back in and go, блядь. that's the end of that clip, but I think the Russians were a little lucky in that clip. The drone missed them just by a couple of feet. If it had hit down on the hood of that truck, they may not have been so lucky. But moving on from that, we also got to see the 148th Artillery hitting some Russian forces in the area as they played their smooth jazz.
Leaving the doors open for fresh air and looking out like a goofball. That'll help you.
Oh, dude, look at them. They crawling.
Oh.
Oh!
Aye.
Aye. Dang, dude. They're hitting that thing hard. Oh,
look,
it
now
looks
the,
like
the hot coolant is going down right on their heads now. That's not good.
I think that may have been gas. Oh, and they're starting to crawl back out now.
They're about to set us on fire with the gas, Bliat.
They're like, let's get the hell out of here, Bliat. I'm just going to lay and
What
pretend
the
like
hell?
I'm dead.
Oh, brilliant. That's brilliant
So
right
they're
there.
pretending-
It's like they're striking you from above. It's like, why are you going to try to hide like out in an open field when they're like literally looking at you from a drone?
So one of them is just pretending he's dead. The other guy here, he's just kind of wandering on the line. He's like, hello. Oh, actually, he's doing the cross. And he's
It's like the
"Hey,
signal for surrender might be appropriate at this point. Oh, nope.
Oh, he's making a run for it. Oh, looks like he didn't make it. Skipping on to the next one, we see this guy here. He's just looking at the drone.
I think Forrest Gump might have made it away.
I was running, but two group, and they're still hitting the MTLBs. We can see guys crawling out from under them, trying to get away.
Inchworming.
Man, they doing that. They're mustard on the beat, ho.
What?
Nothing. Some people might get it, some people might not. But we can see this entire MTLB column is getting cooked one by one. Here comes another. Ooh, cooking good with Kingsford charcoal. You ever wanted a nice, good campfire?
This seems like a really dumb strategy, like driving right out in the middle of this open field. Like, probably not the wisest thing to do, you know. But the Russians aren't known for like spectacular stuff. And also, I'm like, I had a momentary moment of blindness. I couldn't see nothing. And then my eyesight just came back. I see the map.
Oh yeah, me too. Like I don't know what happened right there, but we did get to see a Russian TOS 1 getting hit a little bit further down the lines. Check this out. This is pretty cool. The copyrighted music, not that cool, but the TOS, it is pretty cool. And we can see the TOS firing right there. And it's actually causing the ground around it to burn about as much as the TOS rockets are. And we can see now it's about to get hit by the drone. We're about to see that right here in a second. Nope. Was that the hit? Was that the hit? And that's the end of the clip, but really nice to see. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into our next clip where we got to see Russian forces getting hit around here in a T-72B. Oh, not that song.
Was that like that vlogger vacation music on top of this war like video?
It's like, no. You're not bringing that shit into my... Like, it's like, no. You're not doing that. But we can see them hitting the T-72.
But he didn't number on that one.
Dude, that one's cooking, man.
They have like a picket fence up around it too. Do you see that?
Man, there's a specific someone that you and I both know, Matthew, that's really big into picket fences. I think they'd be sad right now.
Man, oh, a little bit of a problem there on the side.
Don C said, I actually know Mustard. I got that. You know, Matt, you know what I'm talking about, man? It's like that rap song, Mustard on the Beat. You know what I mean?
I've heard about mustard before, not the condiment. The
oh
like,
no, you
but...
know. Well, hang on, man. You know that other one as well, where the guy was talking to the mustard.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Dude, that was from the Vine days, man. But that was a pretty funny one. And then we can see the T-72 just cooking up out here in this field. I mean, cooking up better than Cajun cooks any kind of meats, and they cook meat good. But moving on from that, now the area of the Kremenna Forest, and further on down and into the area of Bodanivka, we got to see the Ukrainian soldiers of the International Legion repelling a Russian attack on June 18th of 2024. Here's the clip. Oh yeah, let's get it. All right, so we got the music playing in the background, which means we have to mute it. But you see this Ukrainian hero with an EOTech. Big shout out to him. Firing his
And a maul.
Say what?
And he's got a maul. Did you see that laser contraption on the front?
Oh yeah. Now I know what you meant. I thought you meant he was like Darth Maul. I was like, what are you talking about? But then it hit me. See them continuing to move on.
Oh, look at that. These guys are kitted out. Like they've got the good stuff, good rifles.
And it's the International Legion, man. I mean, they got their stuff put together. We see them coming on into their dugout here. And we can see them once again moving to other positions in the area around Chasiv Yar. See them firing at a drone. It's always fun trying to shoot down a drone. It's like skeet shooting, but a lot more difficult, and your life depends on it. And then we can see them running around some more. Through the woods around Chasiv Yar, funnily enough. And then they're back at the original dugout again.
Very clean trenches, unlike what you'll see with the Russians.
Man, they keep their trenches clean, man. I mean, like, the National Park Service would be very happy with these guys if it was in a national park. I mean, it's extremely clean.
Oh, he's got that style, too.
Man, he got that thing on him, you know what I mean?
You said this is the International Legion?
Yes.
So that guy must have been from Detroit. He's got some of those, like, the street gun tactics in the system.
Man, they're just having a little adventure out here near Chasiv Yar. They're firing at more drones again. Also, Matthew, by the way, I don't know about you, but we're going to have to make sure that the air temperature stays low because it got so hot, I feel like my hands have swollen up from the heat. Like, no joke. Like, they feel like swollen.
Man, it's a cool 72 in here.
Man, we need to make sure it stays that way these days because that heat at the beginning, I was like, dude, I feel like I'm getting a fever right now. It was that hot.
Wow, that's disturbing, actually.
Yeah, you know, my room has no ventilation too, so the hotter it gets, it's way hotter in here because there's no ventilation. But with that, that's the end of that clip. Nice to see the International Legion doing their job. And with that, moving on to our next clip, we got to see a D-30 conducting a fire support mission. We're going to be muting that. Once again, copyrighted music at play. That's a penalty, 20 yards. But we can see them getting that D-30 ready to go. We can see them with the shell. They are now loading the shell.
Wow, really ramming it.
Man, they are. And we see them firing. See them getting the ram stick again.
Boom! Someone said, how hot is it there? It's very hot in Alabama right now. It's almost getting up to 100 every day at this point.
Yeah, and with humidity factored in, it is getting up over 100 every day. It's like it'll be like 98, but it'll feel like 102, stuff like that. And at least in Fahrenheit, but I believe in Celsius, it'd be like 37 or 36. I'm not really sure.
Wow, it's a muzzle break and a half. Look at that.
Dang, man, that thing be chunky. Douche, and they fired it again.
Boom.
And that's the end of that clip. But nice to see a little fire support mission going on from time to time. Moving on from that and down the line, we also got to see a D-30 being destroyed on the Russian side. This was conducted by the 4th Rubish Brigade, which we can see them dropping the cluster bomb on that D-30, and it looks like it just blew up. All of our food keeps blowing up! But it did blow up, and it's gone. Completely gone. Toasted, cooked, incinerated even.
Oh, a little bit of magma.
It's a volcano down there. But with that, that's seeing that clip. Beautiful to see. Wonderful to see. And with that, we're now going to be moving on past the Avdiivka area because we didn't really get a lot of news on that today. And we're going to be moving on down into Meanwhiole, where we got to see a picture of an AS-90 on a fire support mission, and a second picture, and a third picture. Check that out. Really nice to see. Good to know the AS-90s are doing their job. Meanwhile, down near Vasilivka, we also got to see that a Russian HQ got hit today by some high-precision weapons of the Ukrainian armed forces. We got to see it right there. Whoa. That was pretty impressive. But you know what would be even more impressive? A second and a third one. Wow. Now that is impressive. Call that accuracy. But anyways, moving on from that clip and out of the area of Vasilivka and on down into the area of Kherson, we also got to see that the Stormer shot down an air target at range. Check it out.
Ціль знищена, тип літаковий.
Орлан 30.
Більше все, що Орлан 30, бо здорова хуйня.
And with that, that's the end of that clip, but hey, nice to see. Good to see them shooting something down. And so with that, it's now time for us to move up to Kyiv for the air defense report, because we were able to hear that the Ukrainian air defense around the capital perimeter did quite well today, shooting down 10 Shahed 136 drones. Of course, a very good air defense report, and once again, showing that they are doing a bit of the work. Meanwhile, we also got to hear the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 846 of The Wire. And we actually have one for today. It's an actual blessing.
Hey,
from
we got
God.
a speech. We got the real speech. Please let me hear the speech today, please. Oh, stable volume. What was that? Did you see that new feature?
What? Stable volume?
Stable volume.
I have it on.
Wow, that's like something people have been asking for that on our channel for a very long time about the yelling, like the stable volume. You have it now. Check the setting bar.
Yeah, check the settings, y'all, so that way we can scream at y'all and it won't blow your eardrums out. But anyways, without further ado, here is the speech.
Дорогі українці, українки, я хочу сьогодні передусім відзначити наших воїнів, усіх, хто все ж таки зміг перегорнути цю сторінку війни. Сторінку, яку Путін дуже хотів присвятити своєму наступу, яка стала для Росії черговою помилкою. Кожен і кожна, хто захищає Харківський напрямок, хто стримує російські штурми на Покровському і інших донецьких напрямках по всьому фронту, від Кринок до Вовчанська і вздовж кордону, зокрема на Сумщині. Саме українська сміливість та стійкість визначають ситуацію. Те, що ми можемо, а не те, що Росія хоче чи намагалась. Це ще один вагомий результат України, наших людей в цій війні. Я дякую кожному і кожній, хто дійсно, повно виконує бойові накази, бойові завдання. Дякую усім, хто на собі витягує відбиття російських наступів. Дякую усім, хто допомагав і допомагає. Ми бачимо, як рішучість світу відкриває нові перспективи для відновлення нашої безпеки. Серед іншого, це стосується безпеки Харкова. Знищення поблизу кордону нашими силами, нашими воїнами, позицій та пускових установок російських терористів дійсно має значення. Це спрацьовує. І саме так, як ми і очікували. І за результатами боїв вже зараз, у червні, на різних ділянках фронту, я хочу подякувати усім нашим солдатам, сержантам, офіцерам 1-го окремого штурмового батальйону, 5-ї окремої штурмової бригади, 25-ї окремої повітряно-десантної бригади, 35-ї, 36-ї, 38-ї окремих бригад морської піхоти. Усі ви молодці, воїни. 44-та артилерійська бригада, 47-ма механізована, 57-ма окрема мотопіхотна бригада, 71-ша єгерська 82 ДШВ, 108 ТРО, 110 окрема механізована бригада. Дякую вам. І усім, хто з вами, хто допомагає, хто підтримує, хто лікує після поранень, волонтерить, хто рекрутує і тренує солдатів. Дякую. Разом українці змінюють історію на свою користь. Сьогодні ж продовжили предметно займатися підготовкою наступних наших зовнішніх кроків, зокрема, по активності між першим та другим самітами миру, провів нараду з міжнародниками щодо закріплення відповідальних по регіонам, по частинам світу, щоб залучити ще більше учасників до спільної роботи над пунктами формули. Поступово переходимо і до формування груп, які будуть займатися напрацюванням конкретних кроків для відновлення безпеки. Так само, як і перший саміт миру, що відбувся в Швейцарії, групи мають стати максимально інклюзивними, щоб різні країни та лідери могли проявити себе. І, звичайно, продовжуємо працювати над підтримкою ком'юніке першого саміту. Я вдячний його всесвятості патріарху Варфоломію за приєднання до ком'юніке та незмінну підтримку наших мироустановчих зусиль. Будуть інші такі новини, інші нові приєднання до ком'юніке. Команда займається цим. Ще одне. Зустріч зі спікеркою Литовського Сеймасу. Її візит сьогодні в Україну. Ми надзвичайно цінуємо підтримку Литви, наші відносини та загалом зв'язки України і українців з литовським суспільством, в цілому із Балтійським регіоном. Безпека у нас може бути тільки спільною у наших держав, у наших народів, у нашої незалежності. Дякую за розуміння цього. Гітанасе, дякую тобі, дякую парламенту Литви, уряду, усім, чиї серця з нами, з нашими людьми. Обов'язково маємо вигнати окупанта. Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 846 of the war. And it's time for us to move on into the second segment of this stream where we get to talk to all of you. And it's one of the most fun and most interesting segments of the show because we get to talk about whatever you all want to talk about. You can talk about anything and everything you want. You can talk about a hood review. We can talk about sports, although I don't know any sports or anything about sports. We can talk about celebrities, although I don't know any celebrities or anything about them. We can talk about anything and everything you want. It's just that I might not know about half of it, especially if it's modern pop culture. I'd have no clue. But we could talk about it, and we get to give it the best shot. But Matthew, with that, I understand that we got ourselves an incredibly interesting question from all the folks that have been in the show tonight, and you asked them something, and all of them weighed in on it. So what do we got, Matthew?
So for our final question segment, we have one more poll to address, and it says, Ukraine says Russia is trying to advance before the F-16s arrive from the west, and do you think the jets will come very soon? 54% said yes, they will, while 18% said no, the west is now stalling, and 16% said they will be slightly delayed. So on this one, we were told early June. That was the date we were given before, and now it seems it's been pushed back to July. So this keeps sort of recurring in a pattern here, pushing back that date that the F-16s will indeed arrive. So I'm beginning to wonder if they're going to be delayed much further than July. I have a feeling they might be, but nonetheless, Russia is not having any luck advancing even without the presence of the F-16s. So I don't think Ukraine has anything to worry about, but obviously having the jets would make the whole problem a lot easier for Ukraine to solve. But it looks like the West is going to sort of hold off on that for now for some reason. I don't really know why. They keep saying stuff about pilot training. However, they said they had gotten that sorted out, but now they're saying that they really don't have it sorted out. So the West is really being a bit fickle here. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that I'm not really sure if they are going to arrive soon either. It sounds like it may be taking a little bit of time for them to get there. Maybe there's some more complications in the background. Who entirely knows? But it does sound as though the original timetable that we were given is not accurate, and it's still going to be quite a while until the F-16s ever arrive in Ukraine. Very sad. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least from what we know. We don't really get a lot of information on that stuff about the aircraft, so we really only have the one statement to go off of that we just got. But it does sound as though, based off of that, it may be a little while before they ever see operational F-16s in the theater. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and with that, we're fresh out of poll questions. So we're now moving on to our Super Chat segment once again. And first up, we have a very generous $100 donation, this time from Mr. Breeze, that we saw come in just earlier. Mr. Breeze came in with the actual Breeze in the living room here, or in our own rooms. And thank you very much, Mr. Breeze, for that $100 support. And there is no comment to address, but huge shout out for that very generous support. And that was our first ever Super Chat on our stream. So big time for support, and we appreciate it very much. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to give a huge shout out to Mr. Breeze, who threw in the massive support of $100 and is absolutely living the breeze. And I got to thank you so much once again for your first support of this channel, Mr. Breeze, and making sure that the Lee Spring Army headquarters here in Birmingham, Alabama, can continue to stay nice and breezy, thanks to the working of our ACs. Because without AC, where would everyone in Alabama be? They'd be dead. And so with that, I thank you so much massively, Mr. Breeze, for the incredible support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible. And now you are one of the folks like you, because this is your first time supporting the channel. And that is a massive amount of support to give for the first time supporting. And I got to thank you so much for taking a real leap of faith with this channel, because it is usually very hard for us to get new super chatters, because people generally have a bit of a thing about directly supporting a channel. It's just how it works. It's how it always works with everything, and that makes a lot of sense, really. But beyond that, we always have to appreciate everyone who supports the channel, both everyone who's new and everyone who just got here and just started supporting, like you, Mr. Breeze, who just started supporting. We got to thank each and every one of y'all, because this channel runs an ad-free, sponsor-free live stream. We make not a single cent off of this live stream if it wasn't for y'all's support. And of course, we have to make sense running this show, because living ain't free. People act like because we cover news that for some reason our lives are all taken care of and everything's for free. And it just ain't. It just simply is not the case. And I got to thank you, Mr. Breeze, for appreciating that and supporting this channel, so that way we can make sure to continue to make our lives a breeze, and to make sure to get this news out there like it was nothing more than carried in the gentle winds. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat is going to go to David Romano, who put in actually 2 super chats, and they're each for $25 a piece. And huge shout out to David for also supporting the channel bigly. And the first one here, he says, "Why do I hear the Keystone Cops theme playing in the background inside my head anyway?"
I don't know. I don't know.
Man. I'm a news anchor. I'm not a psychologist. Wait a minute. I'll try to do it. I tried to do it in the Bones voice. It didn't come out in the Bones voice whatsoever. Damn it, Jim. I'm a news anchor. I'm not a psychologist.
I don't know. David, you're asking me the questions that I can't answer. I don't know. What do you want from me? Still, man, the ought to turn into that one person that was in the chat that one night who was like, oh, well, you know, it's simply that the Ukrainians were a country before the Soviet Union took them over. What the? Read! Why can you not read? Like, it's just something like that. But I seriously do not know. I have no idea at all, David Romano. But I still thank you for the massive support and making this channel possible. Because while we may not be able to answer that question, we might be able to answer others that you have. And I believe that there is another question that you actually asked. And Matthew, was there another one?
And there is another one. Guess what? This is the second one from David. He said, "Do you have air conditioning?"
Now, that is a question that we can answer. And the answer is yes, although it's unreliable. I'll be honest. We do have running air conditioning tonight, but actually it was Sunday night. We ran this show without a running air conditioner. It was getting a little bit hot, especially near Matthew's room. It wasn't so much in mine. But It's a little bit iffy sometimes. The air conditioners could work or could not work. It's kind of a miracle from God because the air conditioners, I think, are 30 years old. I don't even know how they've been running for this long, but they're running somehow, some way. And so yes, we do technically have air conditioners. It's just another question if the air conditioners want to work or not that night. But still, I thank you so much for the support, and I thank you so much, David Romano, for enjoying our channel so much that you would support us not once, but twice, with a total of $40 in support to this channel. It helps us to make this thing possible. It helps us to keep this thing running. And like I was just saying a while ago, and this is a big thing that I feel like we ought to hit on, is that this is an ad-free, sponsor-free live stream. We don't make a cent off of this thing, not a dime. Unlike other channels who usually would have a sponsor in their show or they would run ads on it, we don't run either of those. I feel like it's fairly tacky, especially considering the kind of news that we cover, so we try and monetize this as little as possible. Y'all supporting this channel through your super chats is the only way that we were able to make a living getting to cover the news, which is really our passion. We absolutely love it, and we are entirely grateful to everyone who enjoys the channel and finds it worthwhile to support it, because y'all make it possible for us to be here tonight. And so with that, thank you all so much once again for support. Thank you, David Romano, for supporting this channel and helping it to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Tank2, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Tank2, for that support.
Hey!
He says, since we have no enforcers on Monday, I think Tuesday's short war summary should be 3 hours long. Oh my God.
Good
He said,
Lord.
long live the LSA, and take a question from the chat.
Oh my goodness. Now, Tang 2, we tried to make a 3-hour long short war summary. I think we could actually cover everything that's happened in the war in 3 hours if we summarized it well. We could actually do that. I don't think we could do that on a Tuesday. That would be crazy. But I like your passion, Tank 2. I appreciate the passion. I got to thank you for the support. And I got to thank you for loving this channel so much that you want us to make up for it on days that we're not live. But sadly, we would not have time to do anything else of the day if I did a 3-hour version of that. But I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Tank 2, because support like yours helps our channel to be possible, so that way we can put things like that into consideration. And of course, thank you greatly for making this channel possible and helping it to be a reality. You've been here forever, Tank 2. I always see you in the live chat. You're always one of the first people in here, and you're always one of the first people that I say hello to, at least within the first minute or two of the show starting. And it's been like that for hundreds of days. Endless hundreds. I can't even remember when it first started being like that. And if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't just have the inspiration alone to be able to run this show, because the folks who are always in here, literally in the first minute or two of the stream, saying hello to us, y'all show us that there are people really dedicated to our form of news coverage, and that means a great deal to us, inspires us a lot to run this thing every single day. So thank you, Tank 2, for being a very special old guard and always making sure to carry the flag of the Lee Spring Army very high, in a very high standard. But with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Jocelyn White, who's also a longtime channel legend, and she put in a $20 donation. A huge shout out to you, Josh, and thank you very much for that support. She said, take one from the chat, and long live the LSA.
And long live the Lee Spring Army, and we will make sure to take one from the chat in honor of you, Jocelyn White. And thank you so much once again for the support. And now, what is the live chat that we have, Matthew, sponsored by Jocelyn White?
All right, and that live chat question goes to Neshoba, who says, I think North Korea will be the middleman with China for Russia, and what do you think? And I got here late, by the way. And Neshoba, I agree with you 100%. That actually matches what I was saying 100% earlier about North Korea being used as the middleman or the proxy for China to send weapons to Russia. So I agree with you 100%. But Enforcer, what do you say?
I would have to actually say, because this was the two opposite sides of the coin, so Matthew would agree with you, but I disagree. I think that China is actually looking for a very weakened Russia by the end of this war, so they wouldn't really want to provide them a lot of material support, because while that may grind down the West a little bit in terms of their support to Ukraine, it's not going to really achieve the goals of having an extremely weak Russia that China can take advantage of at the end of the war. And so, in my opinion, I think that the North Koreans are probably doing all of this wheeling and dealing with the Russians munitions-wise on their own, and the Chinese are probably staying a step removed, so that way they can just wait it out and wait for the Russians to pretty much collapse inwards on themselves. And so with that, I hope that does address that live chat fairly well. Once again, two different sides of that token, but a really good question, because we actually brought that up earlier in the stream, and it wasn't even something that we planned to bring up tonight. It was just something Matthew and me had different ideas on. But still, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, Josh and White, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running. We wouldn't be able to answer live chats in the super chat segment. And so I got to thank you greatly for that. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And you know what's weird, speaking of different perspectives from you and me, a lot of people in the stream, I believe, think that we discuss and also debate this beforehand to get ready for the stream. All of our opinions that we say on the stream, most of the time, probably 99% of the time, are stuff that we simply think in our heads, like literally on the spot during the stream. So we never actually like go through like a rehearsal or anything like that of what we're about to say. It's literally raw and what we're thinking in the moment every single time. So every single time you hear us going to a debate, it's not staged. It's actually something that we just like literally figured out, oh, that's what you think, and it's also what I think as well. So it's pretty cool. I think some people think that we're like, you know, before the stream going through it like, okay, let's do it like this, let's do it like that. It's like, no, not at all. It's like 100% organic, like some organic bananas or something.
It's rock organic. But beyond that,
100%. No pesticides on this debate.
yeah, we actually don't plan any of that stuff because usually the time before the stream is taken up with me just trying to make sure that the stream will run, like we have enough news and everything to make it run. And so then when we go on air, we haven't, like, what's crazy about this whole show is that somehow we run 3 to 3.5 hours of completely unscripted show, and we hardly have any hiccups or breaks in the show ever, which is something that's actually really shocking when you think about it, because usually, like, for example, with television, while they'll say it's live, and it is live, they've usually already rehearsed a lot of what they're doing live on air. Like, for example, any late night TV show, everything they do is rehearsed. Like, if you ever think that anything on television is impromptu and just on the spot, no, it's not, because that would be too big of a risk for the companies running the shows. So they make sure that everything is kind of already pre-planned out in advance. So when you see Jack Black waddled out onto the Tonight Show and they're like, oh my God, he's here. No, that was pre-planned. Like, it wasn't like he just showed up out of the blue for real. Because imagine what the TV execs would think if someone just walked out onto a show completely impromptu and they didn't know what was about to happen. You know, it's like, that's not how it works. But that's how it works here on this channel. Like, everything we do is just off the cuff. So if you hear ideas and you're like, wow, that sounds really good, or wow, that sounds really bad, that's because we're coming up with it literally while we're talking live. Like, we have no pre-prep on this thing. We've just got to put the news together, get the show ready, and then go on air. And like that one guy said on Fox News, we'll do it live. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And thank you so much once again for supporting this channel and helping it to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one is going to go to Vroom, who puts in their first ever super chat on the stream, and it's a $20 donation, and huge shout out to Vroom for that very generous support. And it said, first, I'd like to say I love the work you guys do, and second, do you think China could win a war of attrition, not including nuclear weapons, against the U.S. if the U.S. fights alone, and what do you estimate the casualties to be?
That is an amazing question, and that is one that requires a lot of crystal balling. So before we even go into this, I just want you to know that all of these approximations are going to be very ad hoc. They're probably not going to be well put together, so don't take this and run with it, or don't quote me on it. But this is how I think it would go. And let's go, Vroom, with the hypothetical that this is happening in 2024, not in 2029, which is when we believe that the Chinese military will be completely informationized, as the Chinese call it. We're going to assume this right now, kind of in the midway point in between really the militia army that they had and the informationized army for the informationized age of warfare that the Chinese think they will be ready for by 2029 or 2032. Really it's 2032, but 2029 is when some of the first parameters are supposed to be met. 2032 is when everything at the latest should be finalized and the Chinese military is an actual modernized army. But beyond that, to answer that question, based off of a conflict happening right now, I would say that a war of attrition would most likely be won by the United States. But it would be very close, because while the Chinese are not a global superpower at the point, they are certainly a regional power, and the most powerful one within East Asia right now, for sure. The United States would actually have to divert a lot of effort and resources towards the Chinese to deal with them if a conflict was to begin. However, the United States Air Force and the United States, as far as combined arms warfare goes at the moment, is superior to the Chinese. The problem is that we would be operating almost entirely off of carriers, which are sea-based, and of course, with a massive Chinese navy that can operate near its coastal areas, and we would be having to fight China in those areas. That would pose a decent risk to any of the carrier groups that we had in the area. However, we do have South Korea, Japan, the Philippines, and also, I believe, Guam to operate from as well, which does remove a little bit of the concern of possibly having the aircraft carriers damaged or destroyed where they wouldn't be usable. We could still operate the Air Force against China from ground forces, and on top of that, from what we understand as well right now, the Chinese Air Force isn't incredibly long range. A lot of their aircraft are actually not able to conduct in-air refueling, a lot like their Soviet counterparts. And so for that reason, their range would be greatly limited. They would not be able to fly that far away from China, so they probably would never be able to directly threaten Japan, South Korea, or the Philippines with direct air power. However, the People's Liberation Army, let's see, I believe it's the People's Liberation Army Rocket Forces, the PLARF, would be able to directly threaten all U.S. bases and all U.S. allies in the region because the People's Liberation Army Rocket Force hosts a wide variety of missiles. A lot of them have enough range to be able to reach pretty far out into the Pacific, about halfway to Hawaii. Some of them can actually reach all the way to Hawaii itself, although those are some of the longest range missiles controlled by the PLARF. But beyond that, I believe that the United States, using a decent amount of Patriots and THAADs, could most likely defeat most of those missile systems being fired by the Chinese. The Chinese are still in the infantile stage of developing hypersonic missiles, so those would probably very rarely ever be used in the war. And not only that, if we're going off of the Russian example of their hypersonic missiles being used, there is a pretty decent rate of interception, even on hypersonics. So they wouldn't be that considerable of a threat to Western air defense systems or Western ground forces in the area. So going off of that, and considering that the United States still can outspend China and probably outproduce them if we converted most of our manufacturing efforts to the war effort, we probably could end up beating China in a war of attrition. Not only that, but the Chinese Air Force, because of course we're talking about an air war and a naval war here, because a ground conflict with the Chinese in this kind of a long-form conflict would probably never happen, to be entirely honest. So the Army is pretty much out of the picture. It would be entirely just the Navy and the Air Force fighting most of this war. They probably would be able to win, specifically because the U.S. Air Force, unlike the Chinese Air Force, is built for creating air supremacy. The Chinese Air Force is built specifically around the concept of area denial, meaning that they don't ever want to have air supremacy. They just want to deny the use of an enemy's air force, but then they have no ability to really exploit the control of an airspace that they have, which is a really interesting concept of the Chinese. They also don't appear to be focusing on creating an air war where they would achieve air supremacy in the future. They only achieve on denying an enemy air force access to specific airspaces, and that's it. So that means that the Chinese ground forces would be insulated from air attacks, but at the same time, China would also not really be conducting a large amount of air attacks, at least in a close air support role, onto ground forces or any kind of naval or really any other kind of forces for that matter, anywhere in that conflict. So going off of that, I would have to believe, based off of the difference in air and naval doctrines, and not only that, the difference in spending power and also the difference in force size and force ability, that the United States would be able to win an attrition war against the Chinese, but it probably would come at a cost. I do believe that we probably would lose maybe an aircraft carrier or two in that sort of a conflict, and also the Air Force would take a pretty decent amount of losses as well, but nevertheless, we still would win, and sometimes losses like those are just the cost of victory. The United States didn't win World War II without losing several aircraft carriers, and honestly, I believe it was hundreds or thousands of aircraft. I would have to go get the exact number, but nevertheless, wars do cost a decent amount of time and equipment, but I believe that's most likely how it would end up turning out. But I got to thank you so much once again, Vroom, for that incredible support and throwing in some amazingly kind words as well, because we try our best. I say that to everyone, and we try and accept compliments with grace, because my usually is, forget about it. I'm not that great. Matthew's not that great. We're not that great. We're just a YouTube channel.
I'm not that great.
I mean,
no, I'm not that great.
Yeah, I mean, we're all right. You know, we're not the greatest, but we always thank everyone for the compliments. It does mean a lot, and it's incredibly nice to hear folks like you, Vroom, always have incredibly nice things to say, although we're just a couple of dudes doing our thing. But still, with that, thank you so much once again for support, Vroom, and helping this channel to keep on running, and I hope I was able to address that incredibly well for your first super chat on this channel ever. And so with that, Thank you so much once again. I hope that analysis sounded somewhat grounded and also used a decent amount of facts and information, facts and logic. Thanks to really lay out what we were talking about. But with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat is going to go to none other than Panama Floyd, who puts in a $20 donation.
Two chairs.
And huge shout out to Panama Tucha for that support. He said, "Sports question mark? Let's talk about real football." This could go sideways. Let's see. My club, Atlanta, stinks this year, but I waited 25 years for it and not giving up now. And Panama, I'll be honest with you, I have no idea, like no context whatsoever for it because I don't follow sports hardly whatsoever. Occasionally I'll see like a tennis match or like a boxing match or something like that, but not really football, to be honest with you. Like, I have no clue. I wish you'd clue me in a little bit because I would like to know. But thank you very much for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, every time, Matthew, I come over and look at Atlanta, Georgia, I always go, "Jeez," because the amount of suburbs is insane. Like, here's Atlanta. It's like, oh, look, there's Atlanta. Where does it end? Well, where?
Yeah, where does it end exactly? Where?
I mean, really, where does it end? Like, I would guess it ends over here at Highway 124 because this is where. Well, even then, the suburbs don't really get less dense because then they just go up to Lawrenceville, and they're still as dense as they were in the downtown area. Look at that; it just goes on forever. I really don't know where Atlanta, Georgia actually ends because yes, there's other towns, but is this all a part of the Atlanta metropolitan area all the way up to here? I mean, like, where does it really end? I got to tell y'all something. I am so tired. I'm gonna give y'all a hot take here. I am so tired of suburban sprawl because it feels like you drive forever and you never leave the city and you don't even see anything of note that whole time. Like, you're just driving. Like, to get nowhere, it feels, because you're still in the suburbs. Like, you get on Interstate 20, okay, at downtown Atlanta, and then you're stuck on Interstate 20 for 2 hours just to move up here to Harville Homes, whatever the hell that is. And then finally you get out of the traffic, you go driving, and then you get all the way out to here at Douglasville, you're still in the city. Like, that's insane. How far is that even?
Man, if you can get on the interstate or the highway in Atlanta and survive and get to where you're going, like, just get out and say a prayer after that, because those roads in Atlanta, those people drive crazy over there in Atlanta. Like, I've never seen worse drivers in Atlanta. It's just like mayhem.
It really is, man. I think people in Atlanta may not be taught how to drive sometimes. That's just from my personal experience. But then again, people on Highway 280, specifically in Birmingham, which this is Highway 280, by the way. It's this highway right here that goes down this little area of Birmingham. People on that highway don't know how to damn drive. Like, everywhere else in the city, it's pretty fine, but on 280, it's literally brawlhalla down there. They'll just kill each other to try and figure out how to switch a lane or something. It's crazy. But beyond that, interesting to hear that there is apparently a soccer or football, as it would be called by European club, in Atlanta. I did not know that, and that is fairly interesting here. I would assume that American soccer teams would not do too well. Generally because America is more into American football than soccer. But still, that is incredibly interesting to hear, Panama Floyd. And I got to say, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I'm seeing a lot of people in the chat saying the suburbs are the worst. And, I don't have a problem with, and here's the thing, though, because some people try and make this a political thing. Like, I have nothing wrong with people who live in suburbs, because for some reason, some people actually hate the suburbs, and specifically the people within them, which is really stupid. Like, it's like they're just people, it's like, why the hell do you gotta hate the people? Like, I can hate the concept of a suburb. I don't have to hate the people in the suburb. That's just stupid. But beyond that, I hate suburbs because it's just a waste. It feels like a very big waste of space. Also, a lot of them end up looking pretty cookie cutter, which is something that really drives me wild because I like some like individuality. But then you have this, and it's like, it doesn't really like get me going, wow, that's cool looking, because it's like there's no trees or nothing. It's just houses and flatness, and that's it. And it just seems kind of, bland. Like, I get it. If it was a little bit more, spruced up, like there was more trees, maybe some fences, something like that, it would look a little bit nicer. But the way things are right now with suburbs, I cannot stand them. I don't like them. And also, it's like, say in the future, for some reason, things get more expensive. Like, say gas gets more expensive. these people out in the suburbs are just screwed because they want to get to a job anywhere. They got to drive 1,000,000 miles to get to where their job is in the city. And if gas is incredibly expensive, which maybe it will turn into that in the future, how in the world do they get around? Like, like they're not going to get around because it'll be pretty much inaffordable. And then a whole bunch
They
of
could take the Marta. You know the Marta?
dude, I'm not getting on Marta and getting stabbed in the morning. Like, dude, I'm not dying.
Man, it's like people think the New York subway is bad. It's like it is bad. That's true in New York. But like I think the MARTA might be worse because the one time we rode on the MARTA, that was an experience. And that was like I think like 7 years ago or 8 years ago or something like that. And it was scary even 7 or 8 years ago. I can only imagine how it is now.
Dude, man, this is the New York City subway versus MARTA. Like the one on the left is the New York City subway. The one on the right is MARTA, dude. It's like,
Yep.
it's freaking hell, man. Dude, like you got on MARTA, dude. You turn into Patrick on that meme where he goes, "What kind of place is this?" Like it's like, what the hell is MARTA? Like, dude, it's like a traveling cesspit of everything bad. Like MARTAs are terrible. Like there's got like they need to post cops on the MARTAs. Because the stuff that'll happen on there is insane. Like, people actually will, like, piss in the middle of the floor on a MARTA, and no one bats an eye. It's like, are y'all just used to this stuff? Like, is this supposed to be normal? And that's also, like, some people are like, oh, it's the city. Is that an excuse for people to act like animals, though, is because you're in the city, so people can just piss in the middle of the aisle in a MARTA? Like, let's be honest here. That is wrong. That should not be accepted, whether it's in a city or not. And they ought to get arrested for public indecency. That would be my hot take on that. I don't know if that's a hot take or not. I feel like that's something everyone could agree on. But crazy people got to be dealt with, all right? They make the cities intolerable. If you dealt with the crazies in the cities would actually be pretty nice places. That's the honest truth. And so, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Someone's going to use that against me in the future, Matthew, when I'm running for president. They're going to be like, you said take care of the crazy. I'm going to be like, hell yeah, I did. That's the problem. And people are going to be like, yeah, because it's true. I mean, like, think about it. Everything in the cities, all right, everything in big cities, including Birmingham, is ruined because of crazies. Like I'm not kidding. Like you try like there are public parks here in the city of Birmingham, okay? I'm going to quickly go on a little bit of a rant here. Like Railroad Park, which is near UAB. You can't go into Railroad Park at certain hours of the day because crazies will migrate in and they'll stab you if you get on their territory. Like that's pretty wild. I'm not going to lie. Like should that be allowed? No. That would be my hot take. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And also Dakota said, okay, so are we just hating on Atlanta tonight? Do you not hear me move on to Birmingham? Can you read? I'm just kidding with you, but no, it's not just Atlanta.
Man, nobody's unduly hating on Atlanta. Trust me, it's just facts. Like I know several people that live in Atlanta. They all say the same thing. The driving is crazy. The Georgia State Patrol is absolutely a menace out there. Like those people are nuts. Like the police out there. Have you seen them like in their police chases, like pitting people and stuff like that? Man, they don't hold back. Like they'll literally take out like the whole family. Like when they're trying to take someone out, like when they're trying to get a criminal, they'll take out the whole like interstate if they need to like pit somebody. They don't hold back at all.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty rough. I feel like just being honest here, folks. I feel like there needs to be a little bit of a reimagining on how cities are run nowadays. They're trying to get things a little bit under control again. But cities will always be wild and a little off the handle. That's just historically how it is. But you can get a lid on it a little bit. And I feel like, not just Atlanta, but really every big city right now needs to start having a little bit more of a lid put on things because it is getting a little bit out of hand. But I will give a huge shout out to Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport because like it's one of the busiest airports in the world. I think it is the busiest airport in the world still in terms of numbers of flights. And I also have to give a huge shout out to it because this is the only airport in the world where we almost ended up throwing hands with the people who work there. So I got to give a huge shout out to Atlanta Hartsfield because not only can you get a flight, but you can also get a knuckle sandwich there for free. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least the best I can. And thank you once again for supporting Panama Floyd and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this channel possible and help us to keep it running. And also, really cool to hear that there is an actual soccer team for Atlanta. I never even knew that there were football clubs in America, or FCs as they're called. But I hope that Atlanta ends up doing better, specifically for you, Panama Floyd. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address it the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to George Tincher, who puts in a $10 donation. And huge shout out to George for that support as
Hey!
well. He says, here's $10 for Taco Tuesday.
Hey, thank you so much, George Tincha, for the $10 for Taco Tuesday. And I gotta thank you so much once again for the support, because it is folks like you and folks like Haba Tegel who help it to be possible for us to have tacos on a Taco Tuesday. And we are massively appreciative of that. So I gotta thank you greatly, George Tincha, for your support to Taco Tuesday and helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Scott Haskins, who puts in a 10 as well. And Scott says, I think Putin's personal presence indicates he's trying to strike a deal to have some Russian companies mass-scale arms production in North Korea, and a new defense minister call, lower cost, and no threat of West attack.
Possibly so, Scott, but I'm doubting a little bit that that North Korea would allow Russian companies into North Korea, because North Korea is a centrally planned economy, and allowing private ventures from the Russian oligarchical sphere into North Korea would probably go against the Jucheist mindset that currently permeates North Korea. It may even be an affront to it. Really hard to actually work out. But North Korea could open up its own centrally planned ventures in support of the Russians with Russian support, but I don't think they'd ever allow Russian companies to actually come into North Korea and set up their own businesses there, because North Korea is by far, while it is a more so of an absolutist monarchy, to be entirely honest, it is still has a lot of communist themes to it, of Marxist Leninism, and so they probably wouldn't allow private companies in North Korea. But I do not disagree with you on the rest of it. I'm sure they probably would want to open up new arms factories to support the Russians, and so I would agree with that pretty much for the most part. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to David Richards, who puts in a $5 donation. And thank you very much, David, for that support. And he said, LSA.
And LSA! And thank you so much for the support, David Richards, and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible, and we are massively appreciative of your support and helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Ben. And Ben put in a $10 donation. This is Ben's first ever super chat on the live stream as well. We got a lot of first-time super chatters tonight. Huge shout out to Ben. He says, what would it take for Russia to piss China off?
What it would take for Russia to piss China off is most likely to once again start reaffirming its Manchurian border claims that it was trying to do in the 1960s and 70s, and also a little bit into the 80s as the Soviet Union. Because that is actually what led the Chinese to move away from the Soviet Union and towards the United States in the 1970s. That's why everyone said only Nixon can go to China. Really, whoever would have been president at that point could have gone to China, because the Chinese were just looking for a friend to go up against the Soviets with. And so if they started to re-push those Manchurian border claims aggressively like they were back in the day, we could actually see that the Chinese would start to be openly hostile against the Russians. Because the most important thing to the Chinese is national security and security of their territorial interests. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, I mean, Taiwan isn't their land, and the Spratly Islands and the Paracel Islands in the South China Sea, and parts of Kashmir and parts of Arunachal Pradesh are also not a part of China either. But to China, they are. And in protecting their territorial interests, whatever those are, that is priority. That is paramount to them, above everything else, even above their Marxist-Leninist ideals, which are still the tenets of the government. That is their major priority, is national security. And so if the Russians started to threaten that, that would piss the Chinese off massively. And so with that, I got to thank you so much once again for support, Ben, and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope I was able to address that incredibly well. And thank you so much once again for your first support ever and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope I was able to address that question fairly well with some historical precedent to add to the validity of the idea, or at least the thought. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to another channel legend. This one goes to Margaret Hemsley, who puts in an $8 donation. And thank you very much, Margaret, as well for that support. And she says, Hood Review, Happy Land Tondo, Metro Manila, and they make a food called pawpaw, or I think it's pawpaw, which is fried leftover from what restaurants throw out, and we're fortunate.
Oh, let's see here, and let me see. Happy Land, Happy Land Tondo, Metro Manila. So it's this area here. The shanty shacks are strong with this one. But where is
Oh
this?
my.
Oh my. This is in the dead center of Manila, the capital of the Philippines. Which actually, let me see if I can find it here. Because I have to bring them up every time I come to the Philippines. It's a required thing. Davao City is actually where the Philippine army ended up fighting the MILF for a while. I just had to throw that out there.
Oh. Oh.
Oh, whoa, dude, we're about to have the Sims coming in. Ooh la la! But anyways, moving on from that and back into Manila, let's check it out. Wow, that's beautiful.
Oh, look, an old Manila. And we're not talking about the file folder, we're talking about this Manila.
Anna and Chow around Philippines. It's more fun in Manila. Shows an actual landfill. It's like, I don't know, like, let's take a deeper look at this. What do we have down these streets? The old streets of Happy Tondo Land. Ah, yes, it is Happy Tondo Land.
And guess what, people of Tondo Land? We just hit 226,000 subscribers as we speak.
Giggity!
Let's go!
Giggity, baby, giggity! But, man, we really did hit it. That's crazy. I got to give a huge shout out to everyone. That means that we have gained, I think, 800 subscribers today, which is
Wow.
mental. And I got to thank everyone so much for joining the Leaf Spring Army today. Fresh and inviting. But let's see. Happy Land Tondo. It's a place. And I would not doubt that they are taking leftover foods from other restaurants and cooking them here, because it looks like they probably are kind of a little bit strapped for options. I'm not going to lie. But let's see here. Can we get any other clips or anything of this? How about this right here? What is this? We got that.
I'm not gonna lie. Like every time I see a place like this that looks this crowded and kind of like, you know, honestly, if I'm being straight up honest here, kind of junky, nasty, and a little bit, you know, dirty like this, sort of putting it kindly. I always wonder, it's like, how did it get to this point? Like, did it start off like somewhat good, or did it always look like this? Because for it to get this dirty, like nobody probably gives a damn for it to look this dirty. Like not a single soul thought, let me like sweep the street or something, or try to put some trash away. It's like nobody really cares apparently.
Well, usually with places like these, they did start off as something kind of mundane or not really that great, but due to a whole bunch of people moving into the city, you know, like a whole bunch of rural folk who really didn't have much moving into the city and trying to find jobs when there really wasn't that many, a lot of them would end up in slums like these, because these happen everywhere. There are actually slums like these in Istanbul, inside of Turkey, because of the massive urban shift that happened during the middle part of the 1900s. So you can actually find big slums like that in Istanbul if we looked hard enough. And let me see if I can actually show some of them. Dang, did they get rid of all of them? No, they couldn't have. Because this is where Erdogan came from. Erdogan came from the slums. So where the hell are they? Like, they're just gone, I guess. Like, man, they got rid of those kind of quick. Maybe, I'm just going to drop down here and see, because I feel like there's got to be. No, actually, that's wild. There are slums here somewhere. Because they were a big deal. I mean, that's where Erdogan came from, but I'm not seeing him now. But also, well, really anywhere where there's a mass urbanization happening quickly, slums pop up. It's always that way. It was like that in London in the late 1800s. It was like that in New York City at the exact same time. It's like that in any city where there's like a rapid influx of people moving in. Slums will always form just because there are people who end up getting the very short end of the stick at the end of the whole deal, or at the end of the day.
There's like varying levels of like slum, you know what I mean? Like there's really bad ones, which is like the one we just looked at, and also kind of like Cuba, really, that are horrifically bad. And then there's like, you know, you can call them quote unquote slums, or sort of just like, you know, sort of rough neighborhoods pretty much everywhere. But these look particularly bad, like these right here. And even in a bad neighborhood, you can have people like sort of like take care of it somewhat, where it looks somewhat organized or somewhat clean. But this right here, well, that actually looks clean down the main street somewhat, a little bit. But those back streets are horrific.
I believe this is actually out of Happy Land Tondo, because the Happy Land Tondo is this here, which are literal slums that are right along the port. This looks like a different area. I don't know what the name of this one is, but what does it look like over here with these yellow Oh, that's a container facility. What does it look like here, though?
Goodness.
Dude, that's one
What
big-ass
the?
hand right there. Nuh-uh. Like, that's a just put a poster out there in the middle of this going, nuh-uh. Yeah. Dude, they got that van in between two potted plants. That's anti-theft right there. You know what I mean? Like, massive
That's
respect.
clean.
The massive respect to the anti-theft measures. Where is downtown Manila, though? I need to find downtown. Okay, so downtown Manila would be about right here. So what does it look like?
Wow, that's a pretty big difference.
Pretty big. This looks a lot better. I'm not going to lie. This looks like any South American country, like Peru or really anywhere like that. Not bad, actually. It's just that it requires a little bit of pressure washing. But really, to be honest, everything in Southeast Asia looks like this because of the humidity. But beyond that, yeah, not bad. But damn, dude, like, does it get bad out there in Happy Land Tondo? I mean, it is horrendous up there. Oh, which it's once again right here. But what else do we have here? Look, there's slums here too. Like, they just kind of pack in wherever they can, if you notice. Like, because look, you have these larger buildings here, and then you have just a little slum kind of like nestled in between them.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. It's like there's really not like typically there's like there's a certain side that'll be like a bad, like kind of rough neighborhood, and then there's like the good side. There doesn't appear to be like necessarily a good side here. It's just like it's all mixed in. Like one street's good, next street's bad, and it's flip flops.
Yeah, because look, here's another one. Like, here's a slum, and then it's surrounded by normal houses. That's actually really interesting, actually. I wonder why that's the case. I guess it's just, like I was saying, rapid urbanization, not really enough room, not really enough opportunities, so the shanty shacks just pop up wherever they could, and so that's why the slums are all sporadic and intermittent. And we got the ROTC hunters out here, so it looks like they're trying to... we got a street called ROTC hunters out here. This is what it looks like.
Man, hunting down the what's that fella doing?
I don't know. I guess he's being
He's
the super daddy.
He's super daddy. He's big daddy. He's super daddy.
Man, we got that 10 smart laundry.
Burger hunter. Man, it's like I don't want to hunt the burger. I just want to get it. I mean, is it possible?
Let's see what else we got. We got let's see, what was that? JL's Eatery. We got that Luton Baja. We got that Mommy. We got that Silog, that Sizzling, and we got that Pizza ATVP.
Man, give me a big hot steamer bowl of that Silog, you know what I mean?
That's it, man. Man, I want me some Mammy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, give me some of that.
Some sizzling.
But let's see here. We got that BJP Eatery and Store. And then we got that. What have we got here? Now with 2 branches in Timog.
Overnight promo. Stay for 10 hours. 670p.
Wait a minute.
Stay for 10 hours.
That doesn't
why
sound...
are they selling the hotel room in hours?
That sounds a little fishy, Matthew.
That sounds a little odd.
That's a little odd.
Never heard of that.
Are we in? Never mind. Let's see here. What else do we have? What do we have next door? We got that Kuyajung barbershop for men and the women's. And we got the picture of the men and the women's getting the haircuts.
What was on that roof? Like, look up on the roof right there. What's this say? Oh, looks like some political junk. We don't cover that here.
Nah, we don't cover that. Not even Filipino politics. Absolutely not. Zion Laundry.
Whoa. Whoa.
Dude, where are the pro-Palestine protesters for this? I don't see them anywhere. Like where are they? I don't see them in Manila. But let's see here. Dude, ROTC Hunter Street is full. Precious Kitchen. Precious.
Right, it looks pretty clean though. Like it looks like they might have some bussin' food in there for real.
Dude, they probably do. But what else do we have, man? Like, this street is actually a trip. So let's see here. Some people say, can we stop making fun of poor Filipino? Look, man, it doesn't matter where we are. Like, it could be a poor place, a rich place. We make fun of everything. So sorry if you're offended, but this is what we do. But let's see here. What else do we have? I want to move further down the street. We got that JG Recall Barbershop. It's got 1 chair. Dude, that's Floyd's Barbershop. 2 chairs, 2 chairs.
It sure is.
Dude, no joke. And then we got, dude, the snacks, though. Oh, my gosh. This is actually loaded.
Man, they got all the snacks you could want.
Dude, they got cracklins. Dude, they're Cajuns, man. They got freaking cracklins. I can't believe that. That's wild. I never expected to see cracklins in the Philippines. Oh, and look, they got the building permit up here. I don't know if that's a legit building permit though, but we'll assume it is. But what else do we have down the street? Marlboro. Government warning. Cigarette smoking is dangerous to your health. Oh, look, they have the same warnings over there that they do here. That's kind of cool.
They don't tell you what it could cause, though. They took the cancer word out.
It's health issues, you know. Maybe.
It's just like, yeah, it could cause some issues with your health. It might cause a snotty nose or something.
We got that 888 pharmacy, generic and branded medicines. So you can get that off-brand or you can get that on-brand. And right next door is Hunter's Motor Shop. One motorcycle at a time.
Oh,
please.
wow. They got the motorcycles in there. That's pretty nice.
That is pretty cool. And then we got that Cheche store. And let's see, what else? We got that. I'm not reading that. I feel like that. I feel like I feel like I get in trouble if I'm reading that one. It sounds like something else. But we're gonna move on down the street. Let's see, what do we have? We got that Photoshop and Gcash.
Gcash.
I don't know what Gcash is, but dude, look, it's the same ad on the freaking sign. Hey, do you see that? Hold up. Wait a minute, I gotta get there. Oh, dang, dude.
Wait a minute, stop right here.
Now with two branches in T-Mog. Again.
Scroll down a little bit. Like, don't scroll down, like, move down, like the thing. Like, yeah, look down that, like, posters on the wall right there.
These?
Yeah, what is on the wall?
I think this is a political ad, Matthew.
Man, that's a strange political ad, I'm not gonna lie. It looks really weird from afar.
What does that one say? Don't read it. Don't read it.
Man, what the hell?
What the hell does that mean? Like, what does that mean?
I don't even know. I don't even know, man. These posters are scaring me a bit.
Bro, these posters are wild. Let's see. Tempered glass for cell phone available. Let's see. Hang on. What is this? Phonetics gadget exchange. Okay, that's interesting. One's meat trading. Hey, dude, you could actually pair the meat trading for new now with two branches in Timog for 10 hours. Like, you could have a whole business running there at meat exchange and 10 hours in a hotel, bro. You're set.
I'm just gonna let that slide.
I'm gonna pretend like I didn't see that. They got pizza. We're almost to the end of the street. So Hart General Merchandises, plastic cup, slippers, and beauty products. So if you want anything
and
else,
they chose
go
the
to
most
hell.
strange.
Yeah,
they chose the most strange products to like feature on their sign. Plastic cup. That's all we got. Plastic cup. Meanwhile, they got like literally everything under the sun. But remember, plastic cup.
And I don't know what the hell is up with this, but here it is again. Now with two branches in Timog. Again. Dude, they want those rooms
They're
filled.
advertising hard for that. And they got that RFID card too.
Oh, look at this. Bills, payment, and services. Top up. Pay bills. Send money. Gcash is back. Pay Maya and Padala. Available here. Look at that. And we're almost at the end of the street. We cannot go to the end of the street, but there's that freaking sign, Matthew. What the hell does that mean? Like, what does that word mean? Like,
wait a minute, it's a politician and his last name is Yap. That's man, he's a yapper like the rest of the politicians.
Man, he yapped for the people. he's out there for them. But with that, I hope we addressed that well. Thank you so much, Margaret Hemsley, for the support and allowing us to look at it. I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't even like funny to look at or anything and like joke about, but this was a pretty rough place down here near the port. But still, thank you for the support and allowing us to get at least a laugh out of ROTC Hunter Street in Manila in the Philippines. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support and help with this channel to keep on running.
Yes, indeed. And up next, huge shout out to John Scott, who put in a $5 donation, and also huge shout out to Nick LSA and also Robert Johnson as well.
Hey!
And they did not leave comments, but thank you all three very much for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank the three of y'all for the support, because y'all helped to make this channel possible and helping to keep on running. And so I gotta thank all three of y'all, John, Nick, and Robert, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like y'all, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible and help it to keep on rolling. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Ah, see, I see somebody's living in Alabama in the live
Uh-huh.
chat. House said it's their version of a Shannara billboard. Oh my God! Now,
Oh,
if you live in Alabama, you'll be very familiar with the Shannara billboards. They're literally everywhere. So much it's annoying to even see. Like the advertising is obnoxious. They're literally everywhere,
wait a
and
minute.
you'll see literally there'll be rows of billboards, like 5 back to back, and the guy will literally have each and every one of those billboards within 5 feet of one another, like the same advertisement. It's ridiculous.
There's got to be a Shannara billboard on this highway. There it is. There it is. It's
Oh
we
my
dropped
God,
down
man,
and
there
it's
it
right
is.
there. They're everywhere. You can't get away from them in this state. Like honestly, I feel like there ought to be some advertising laws put forward in Alabama that you can not occupy adjacent billboards one after the other because it just gets so annoying to see Shannara on every billboard in the state. I think he's the only people keeping the billboard business. He's the only person keeping the billboard business alive here. But let me move us down further on the interstate. I'm sure there's another one on the same interstate. Actually, no. Oh, look, it's Clemjack. He's another kind of somewhat common one, but not too common. But there's got to be another Shannara billboard here. I know. Wait, I think we got Vance up there actually, Matthew. Like we got all the law firms up here. Yeah, that's Vance.
Man, we're giving them too much advertising, man. Jump off of this.
Yeah, we're jumping off. But anyways, with that, I hope we addressed that well, about the whole Shannara thing because you were dead on the nail. I mean, like, Alexander Shannara is a billboard that is insanely common in Alabama. It's the most common billboard, I believe, ever. And it's a joke here in the state that everywhere you go, Shannara will be there. And so with that, thank you so much once again for bringing that up. And thank you to all three of y'all once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one. Oh, dude, I'm seeing people call me Alabama. It's like, oh no, it's like stop.
Why would you want somebody to call you Alabama instead of just calling you by your first name?
Hi, Alabama, I'm dead. Dude, so like, oh man. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
I'm in that period of silence.
Yeah.
But anyways, we have a $5 donation this time from LSA Master Sergeant Figment. And he says, LSA, hit the like button. That's an order. Keep up the great work and take one from the chat.
Hey, and thank you so much for support, Master Sergeant Figment. And I gotta say, hit that like button. That is an order. We love it when people hit the like button. We've gotten up to 2,300 likes already. Can we get up to even more? I don't know. But still, I thank you greatly for the support, LSA Master Sergeant Figment. And I thank you once again for wanting us to keep up the great work, supporting this channel, and helping it to be possible. And of course, being a big member of the Sleep Spring Army. And of course, we will make sure to take one from the live chat. And so, what do we got? Sponsored by LSA Sergeant Figment.
And this one is going to go to AF Kaplan, who says India is now going to buy U.S. weapons, but are they still going to continue to buy Russian oil?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if they're going to keep buying Russian oil. I have a feeling, at least in the short term, they will. But I don't think it will be a long-term thing. I think India is going to even try and find other sources for oil, probably going towards the Middle East instead of Russia. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And thank you so much once again for supporting this channel and helping it to be possible, LSA Sergeant Figment, and helping us to address that live chat. And with that, we are on to the next one. Now, I got to agree with what you said right there, man. You got to calm down. I don't know what's going on down there, but you got to calm down. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Terrence Custer, who puts in a 5 and says, for the root beer and Takis fund, and great job to the Enforcer Bros. And thank you very much, Terrence Custer.
And that's a new kind of a fun, Terrence Custer. Takis and root beer. Takis are not that bad, although I will be honest, they'll probably rip apart your intestines after about a whole bag of them. They're actually pretty good tasting, though. And root beer, you can't beat root beer. Root beer is just good. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for support. I thank you. I thank you very much. And thank you once again for supporting this channel and helping it to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And the next one goes to Shady Hayes Gaming, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Shady, for that support. And we have a lot of Alabama viewers in here tonight. Shady Hayes said, shout out from Gadsden, Alabama. And a great job keeping us all in the know. And also, by the way, I think that was our first ever super chat on the stream as well.
And thank you for your first ever super chat. And thank you for being from Gadsden, Alabama. It's just right up here north of Birmingham. We are actually in the city of Birmingham, Alabama, and I have actually driven through Gadsden before. I was actually going up to, what the hell is it called? What the hell is it called? Is this it? Yeah, Horsepins 40. I was actually going to Horsepins 40 for a time, which is this big plateau thing up here, which is really cool, by the way, y'all. But beyond that, Gadsden is not that bad of a place. It's one of those classic Alabama towns, and we got Valiant Steel right here, and that steel do be valiant. I mean, it really do be. And so, with that, thank you so much once again for your kind words. Thank you for your first support of this channel ever. And thank you for being from Gadsden, Alabama. We're really starting to pull out all the Alabamians here. And I gotta say, I thank y'all all for being here. Because while we can all agree the state's got its shortcomings here and there, every state does, I think we can all also agree that Alabama is one of the best states in the country. You know what I mean? I like it here. I respect it. I would live nowhere else than Alabama, my honest opinion. Love the place. But with that, thank you so much once again for being from Alabama. And thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right, and our next ones go to Stephen Mosher, who put in a $2 donation. He put in 2 of them, and his first one said, Putin closing the back door.
I read the specific way that was written. I don't know about that, Stephen, but I still thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I gotta say, thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running, making it possible, because it is folks like you who help us to keep this thing running. And with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you once again for the support.
And the next one from Steven says, Russia plus Cuba plus the Democratic People's Republic of Korea equals Cold War II.
No, they don't have the economic ability, Stephen, to start a Cold War. Cuba, the DPRK, and Russia, you're adding nothing and nothing to nothing. You would have to have China, the DPRK, Russia, Cuba, Iran, and maybe a couple of other countries added in to be able to create a Cold War-like situation, in my opinion. Because really, that's just a gang of losers, is what you're describing right there. And to have a Cold War, you got to have at least one halfway winner in there to make it a bit of a competition. But still, I got to thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Stephen. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible and keep it on running. And so with that, we are on into the final super chat of this stream tonight, and then we're going to be moving on into the live chats. And so what do we? Oh, actually, it's the second to last one. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so this one goes to Maybe, or Maybe, who puts in a $20 donation. And I like that name. I'm telling you what, Maybe. That's a good word, maybe. Maybe. But anyways, they said, Slava Ukraine.
And Slava Ukraine. And thank you so much, Maybe, for maybe being one of our Norwegian viewers, maybe. I don't know, maybe. But still, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you for being one of the members of the Lee Spring Army, all the way from up there in Norway. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And now we are on to the final question of, the final super chat of the segment. And then we're going to be moving on into the live chats. So what do we got, Matthew?
And this one goes to Neil Vizanant, who puts in a 2 and says, have you seen the IDF using a trebuchet? A trebuchet. What the hell am I saying?
Yes, I have. I have seen the IDF using a trebuchet. Some people have been saying that that was actually a use in combat. It wasn't. It was actually a bit of training being conducted by some field engineers, and they decided to goof around and build themselves a trebuchet. But I did see it, and I'm not going to lie, it actually was really cool to look at because it was an actual small functioning trebuchet. Although the range on that thing was horrendously small. I mean, it got like right over the Hesco wall, and then like the projectile fell right on the other side. But still, it was pretty cool. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we have reached the end of our super chats, and we're about to be moving on into our live chats. But I do want to lay this out there really quickly to y'all. Due to some things going on behind the scenes, which we can't really get into details too much, we are going to have to end this stream a little bit early tonight, so that way we can make sure to take care of some things, make sure everyone's ready to go for tomorrow, and then get cracking at it tomorrow. Of course, usually these streams are really anywhere in between 3 hours and 3 hours and 30 minutes long, but tonight we're going to be trying to make sure that it's shorter than 3 hours. So we're going to be answering live chats probably for the next 7 to 10 minutes, and then we're going to be rounding out the stream. And so with that, we are on to the first live chat of this segment.
And our first one is going to be the Morse code decoders of the stream. And tonight we had Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Paul Schultz, Kevin J., Rumpelstiltskin, and also David Millsaps, the whole gang. They said, Enforcer, the LSA signal Morse code report, today is the Russians are getting beaten pretty badly nowadays. I don't think they're going to hang in there. And LSA.
And there's the sound of money, and y'all got that dead on the nail. That was the Morse code message. And I got to congratulate each and every one of you for getting that Morse code message correct on the 846th day of the war. Y'all get that thing right, dead on the nail every single day. And that was the message again today, just like it was on Sunday. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our first actual live chat of the live chat segment is going to go to your boy Troy, who says, do you think that Putin is also forming a pact with Kim, where they would act as a dead man's hand for the other in case of a defeat?
Probably not. Usually with things like that, no other country would suicide themselves pretty much for another, for no reason. So I would assume they probably wouldn't, because if North Korea could weather out a nuclear holocaust, why would they automatically throw themselves in and go, I want to die too? Like that would be no one's natural reflex. So I would doubt it, but it's never out of the question completely. I would have to say that as well. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Howard Turgell. He says, if and when the fighter jets actually arrive in Ukraine, meaning the F-16s, will they be hitting targets inside of Russia?
From what we understand, they technically would be allowed to, so yes, I do believe that they probably would be used to strike targets inside of Russia, at least from what we know. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best we can, and we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Happy Dragon, who says, where does North Korea even get their weapons from? And do they manufacture them themselves? And where do they get the materials to even do that?
From what we understand, they mine and produce most of the materials themselves from inside of North Korea, because while North Korea doesn't have a lot of arable land suitable for farming, they do have a decent amount of natural resources under the surface in North Korea, from what we know at least. And so they usually pretty much divert all of their economic activity into war production. So how do they get the weapons? They get them from themselves. Where do they get the resources from that? They usually mine that and refine that themselves, although it pretty much takes up the entire effort of the country to do that every single year. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Joseph. And he says, do you think that China would invade Russia if the Russian army gets too weak? And if so, do you think that the UN would intercede?
I don't think China would ever invade Russia, considering that that's not really the Chinese way, and China doesn't consider Russian lands to be a part of China except for one island in the Amur River, which would be no reason for an invasion. It would be a reason to send soldiers to that island and plant a Chinese flag on it, but really beyond that, they wouldn't ever conduct an actual invasion of Russia. But if they did, of course, the United Nations would go, whoa, Nelly, hold up, but then they wouldn't do anything beyond that because they're powerless. That's one thing that a lot of people don't know about the United Nations, or really everything else, is that they're completely powerless organizations in the end, like the International Crime Court or the International Criminal Court. It's completely powerless. It relies on nations to follow through on what they say to have any kind of power, so it's non-existent in terms of power. The United Nations is as well. And then I see a lot of people putting way too much weight on this thing called the World Economic Forum, or the WEF, which is literally just a forum of dumbasses that get together and say stuff. So it's like, does it have any power? No, not really. Is it going to be changing the way any nations run? No, not really. And the United Nations is just like any of those other organizations. It's really completely powerless, and the only reason people know about it is because everyone talks about it and what they say, but what they say doesn't mean anything in reality. So with that, hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Fayuma, who says, can you show the new Leopard 2 by KNDS? Can we take a look?
Let's see. New Leopard 2. The Leopard 2 A7 Bless. I'm hoping this is it. I'm thinking that's not. And what did they call it again?
The Leopard 2 by KNDS.
Uh-huh. Let's see. Second here, trying to make sure that we're around getting this thing right. Okay. All right, so here it is. All right, I'm gonna calm down, but it does look promising. Oh, that's it. It looks like it's using the 120 millimeter Rheinmetall gun. I don't know if the crew is manned, but one thing that is really cool to notice about it is that it actually has trophy systems built into the turret. Like you can see one on both sides of the turret. So that is really interesting. It also has smoke grenade dischargers in an automated machine gun turret, and it looks like the machine gun's actually pretty beefy. Maybe some kind of a 20 millimeter, which would be great for an anti-infantry role. So that is really interesting. Let's see what we have about this thing.
Wait a minute. Are you seeing the same thing I'm seeing? Are those advertisements for AM General over there on the right? Like Humvee Sabre? Is that an advertisement?
Yeah.
What the hell? I've never seen an advertisement. Look at that.
Look at that. Wait, what other ads do they have? Huh.
It's like Defense Department ads popping up all over the place.
Edge Autonomy. I guess this is a website frequented by the defense industry because there is a lot of defense industry ads on here. But anyways, they're going to showcase 2 new main battle tank concepts. Let's see, advanced versions of the Leopard 2 and the Leclerc. And this is the Leopard 2 RC 3.0 tank, complete with unmanned remote control turret, is to be displayed alongside the Leclerc Evolution vehicle, fitted with a man turret and integrated with a 120mm Ascalon gun, according to a company statement released today. It's a joint venture between Kraussmaffei Wegmann and Francis Nexter. The manufacturer noted that the main weapon is loaded by modular, automatic, linear loaded, and calibers between 120mm and 140mm can be selected, although the NATO standard is 120mm. In addition, extra space in the chassis has been achieved through a new weapon mount, enabling up to 4 crew members to be inside the chassis, all supported by a protective crew cell added KNDS. The ballistic protection is supplemented by a proven active protection system, the trophy, and a remote-controlled 30mm weapon stick. Oh my god! A 30mm? Dude, that gun's bigger than a Bradley's up there on the top of the turret.
A freaking chonker.
Dude, that is freaking thick. Let's see, the firepower, augmented by a guided missile system with targets beyond line of sight, can also be engaged while on the move. Let's see. Wow, that is actually really impressive technology demonstrator. I don't know if this thing would ever be selected because usually weapons acquisitions have a lot to do with budgeting, and this thing may be incredibly expensive, but that really does add in a lot of the systems that you would need to be able to bring a main battle tank into the modern world, because it has trophy systems, very important in modern conflict. It has a pretty decent 30mm, which apparently can track and shoot down incoming drones. The very important feature from what we can tell from the lessons learned in Ukraine. And it also has the 120mm main gun, which still makes sure that it fills the role of a support gun for the troops. So overall, this thing is actually pretty freaking nice, at least in terms of its active protection systems. And maybe it will see some progress, or maybe it'll start to change the design influences on main battle tanks in Europe and in America, but we'll have to see. But that still is pretty cool. And so with that, I hope we addressed that well, and we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one is going to go to Robert Gates, who says, do you think that Russia might be helping North Korea to get a working reconnaissance satellite into space in exchange for weapons or for starting something with the West?
Oh, no, that may be possible. I don't think they'd ever agree to start anything with the West, but giving them more weapons, certainly. That's something that the North Koreans would want. That's something that the North Koreans the Russians would probably be more than happy to help the North Koreans with. So I would say yes, they may actually be offering help to get them a satellite launched into orbit, as a possibility. That may actually be a reality. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion, because that's certainly not out of the realm of possibility as a possible trade. And so with that, we are now on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Brit, who says yesterday one of China's biggest military cargo planes landed in Belarus, and it was a Y-20A. And look up a picture and look at how big that thing is.
Man, I'm supposing that this thing's got to be big. The Y-20A. Oh, this thing isn't that big. Let me go get some dimensions. Yeah, I mean, it's not that big. I mean, it's like a C-17, isn't it? Like, hang on, let me look around a little bit really quick. Let me make sure that I'm saying this correctly before I get this thing on there. You know, like, I gotta look at this thing. You know, I could be wrong. Yeah, it's actually smaller. Yeah. It's smaller actually. Believe it or not, you know, way smaller. Yeah, so It's not that big, and I'll say why it's not that big here in a second. But this is the Y20, and this is also, some people are gonna be like, "Hey, they stole the design." Probably, I'm not gonna doubt it.
They did.
This is the C-17 Globemaster. Notice the differences? Not really. I'm not really noticing a lot of differences. It really does look like it was heavily inspired off of a C-17. Let's see if it says anything about that. Let's see. According to Chinese media, the Y-20 is the first cargo aircraft to use 3D printed technology.
Oh, that's gonna last great.
Let's see here. I need to find if anyone says it's a copy of the C-17, because look at that. Look at this. Like, yes, they're different, but they also look very similar with their overall design premise. You know, like the rear tail section is identical on both of them, with how the fuselage like elevates a little bit. You can see that there. Like that looks incredibly similar. The jet engines, though, are different, of course. But I would say that's not too concerning. This thing probably doesn't have a lot of lift power, and let's go down and see what kind of payload it can carry. Let's see here. Empty max takeoff weight is 220,000. Well, actually, 485,017 pounds. What does that compare to the C-17? Let's see here. Let's see. Max takeoff weight, 585,000 pounds. So the C-17.
Oh, there's sucks.
Theirs sucks. Like it's literally just shorter than ours by like 10 feet in like the length, and it can carry like 100,000 pounds less. Dude, get mogged on like all day, every day. This thing is better by every single measure. But beyond that, however, I would have to say
a wrecked one or something, isn't it?
yeah, like a gear failure. Front landing gear collapsed inwards, and this is at Bagram actually in Afghanistan, funnily enough. But anyways, beyond that, I would say that's not really too severe because it's really just a C-17 Galaxy. To put it into perspective how small of a cargo plane that is on a military scale, the United States, I believe, has like 50 C-5 Galaxies that are still in service. Actually, 130. Hang on. I don't know how many of these we still have in service, but this is a C-5 Galaxy. And let me get you some read-offs on the dimensions of this thing because it dwarfs the Chinese aircraft. So this thing is 247 feet long. It beats out this one by a mere 100 feet long, meaning that's about 70% larger in length than the Y-20. The wingspan of this thing is 164 feet. The wingspan of the C-5 is 222 feet. So this is the largest cargo aircraft that the United States military operates. And you can kind of get the idea, it's a chunker. This thing, not so much. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank every single one of y'all so much once again for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure running the stream for all of y'all. All 7.3 thousand people who were here tonight, and all 41,000 people who have watched. We were entirely honored to run this news for each and every one of y'all. And if y'all did enjoy, make sure to subscribe. Hit that like button. Do anything you want. Anything and everything. Hell, unsubscribe if you want. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. Whoa, Jack. Whoa. Don't unsubscribe. We would be sad to see y'all go. But beyond that, I thank you all so much once again for watching. It has been an absolute pleasure, and I will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And good night, folks, and we'll see you all tomorrow night. And thank you once again for another great stream tonight. And with that, Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava, and we'll see you all maybe midday tomorrow as well for a short war summary. And with that, good night.
The Lee Spring Army sends its regards.